All right, today is Friday, July 11th, 2025. I'm BrentNally. It's been quite a while since I've done a live stream, I think November 1st, 2024. But I've just been doing tons of research. Like always, I'm a constant, never ending learner, autodidact, and constantly doing research on all types of things and also raising my kids. My daughter is going to be 3 on July 23rd, and my son will be 6 in November. And this live stream is titled "Be Careful Who You Follow." I thought about all different types of titles because I research all different types of things, which hopefully I'll get time to talk about. It's about 10:34 right now. It's honestly past my bedtime, but I've been trying to do a live stream for a while and just getting everything set back up, the professional microphone, the lighting, the um, Logitech 4K Brio webcam and everything, just so this is a little bit more professional. It's something I wanted to do, and it took more time than usual. But we got Max Eternal Life in the fan here. That's my buddy, Max Anderson. We interviewed a number of different longevity entrepreneurs and enthusiasts, scientists back on our YouTube channel, Longevity was the name of the channel back in 2020. And I want to talk about a few of those people we interviewed. One person that we interviewed is Peter Voss. And I was engaging with Peter Voss last night on X because of the Grok 4 release that was a couple days ago. And I pay for X Premium Plus annual subscription. Hit me a couple months ago with 300 something dollars. And so I've been messing around with Grok 4 the last couple days since the release. And it's funny on X, people have been saying like the last 48 hours or so since the release, like, oh, this seems like we're closer to AGI. And Peter Voss, again, who Max and I and Rowan Horn and Alex Kotoff, the four of us interviewed back in 2020, Peter Voss literally wrote the book called Artificial General Intelligence that I believe was published in 2022, along with Ben Gortzel, who I also interviewed on my BrentNally YouTube channel back in 2020, this YouTube channel right here. You guys should go and check this out. I thought it was still really good. It was titled like AGI to End Aging or to Solve Aging, something like that. And Ben's a friend, and he was actually an advisor for my longevity plan company a few years ago before we shut that down. And Ben's a very intelligent mind, in my opinion. And so Ben Gortzel, Peter Voss, and one other guy, I can't remember his name. I think it was in 2002. You can look this up for the exact date, published the book titled Artificial General Intelligence. So those are the three dudes that came up with that name, as far as I know. And now everybody's talking about AGI or super intelligence now is rebranded as the new thing over the last few years. Nick Bostrom and some others have been integral in kind of reframing it to that. But what Peter Voss has said very consistently for over 20 years and is still saying today, even as of like this morning when I queried Peter Voss asking him what he thought about the Grok 4 release, and Peter replied to me on X. You can look at my X replies on there if you want to see specifically what Peter Voss said, is that no, this is not AGI for with Grok 4, and we're not anywhere close. And I agree with Peter. And I went back about 6 months ago and I rewatched our interview with Peter Voss from 2020. So this was probably late 2024. I rewatched it. And man, I just say, 4.5, 5 years later, late 2024 from the 2020 interview, I just thought Peter Voss was just spot on everything that he said back in 2020 and been very consistent. What Peter Voss is basically saying is that the way we're doing all of AI right now, including LLMs, including Grok 4, all of the big AI models, they're still narrow AI, what Peter Voss calls narrow AI. This is not artificial general intelligence. It's not just automatically just going to become like generally intelligent like humans are, because it doesn't have like reinforced learning. It's just very, very narrow. And so I don't want to get into all of the details of that right now because I want to talk about a number of different things on this live stream. But I just want everybody to know basically what I believe is that we're nowhere close to like artificial general intelligence and stuff like that. So all these experts that are saying that like we're close to there or basically there, like I completely disagree. I love Elon. Elon on the Grok 4 presentation a couple nights ago, which by the way, I watched in its entirety, talking about how Grok 4 will get 100% on the SAT every single time and something like 99% on pretty much every GRE exam, and is pretty much as smart as every single PhD student in every single discipline. That's very different than like real world intelligence. And so, just think of it like this. If you were still calling into a call center right now to do anything with any type of business, whether it's wait on hold for your health insurance for whatever reasons, or some type of health issue, or anything you can think of with a corporation, paying your internet, Comcast, Xfinity, whatever. How great is that experience? How smart are those customer service chat bots? They're still like really dumb, in my opinion. And you waste so much time online with these dumb AI models. And then when you finally do talk to a human, it's probably not the smartest human. Like, no offense, I'm just being honest. And so you just end up wasting so much time and energy and effort on nonsense still. So I think when we're kind of more efficient and just something as basic as customer service, where you have an issue that you get resolved like literally in seconds, not minutes, that's right now could take like literally 15, 20, 30, even 45 minutes up to an hour, also because of wait times and stuff like that. When we get there, then we're probably closer to like AGI, super intelligence. So that's all I'll say on that for now. But it is very impressive, all the improvements that all the AI companies are making, and Elon at Grok and Colossus. Like, I keep up with this stuff a lot, and that's what I'm going to talk about a lot. Some of the YouTube channels that I watch, all the information that I'm constantly putting into my brain. And that's why I titled this live stream, Be Careful Who You Follow. And that's, of course, Naval Ravikant, who has been saying this for years. And I've been repeating that since, like, I don't know, 2018 or so when I first heard about it. So what are some of the content that I watch? So every single day I watch Solving the Money Problem YouTube channel, which is done by the content creator is Stephen Mark Ryan. He's approximately my age, 40 years old or so. He's an Australian guy, lives in Australia, I believe in a high-rise apartment in Sydney. And he's a big Elon super fan like I am, and Tesla shareholder like I've been for many years. And I really like Stephen because he just kind of I don't know, he's just really my style as far as his the way he thinks, his comedy, and the way he tries to like hammer home points and accomplish his mission, which is getting people to understand the opportunity in Tesla long term. So, in case folks are not aware, for Tesla investing, TSLA, the actual ticker symbol, the investment thesis is at this point in time basically all about autonomous robots in the short term. There's also the more affordable cars that should be coming out. They were said to supposed to be going into production in the first half of 2025. Of course, we're now in July, officially in the second half of 2025. So they should hopefully be going on sale soon. We'll see exactly what those prices are. I'm sure it's just going to be kind of a stripped down, cheaper version of the Model 3 and the Model Y, is what I've believed for over a year. And but then after that, it's just the autonomous robotaxis. So of course, a couple weeks ago, we had the first paid robotaxi rides in Austin, Texas, for Tesla, and the robotaxi app, which is available to only a few select people for now, but they're, I believe, scaling that up more and more. Um, and the opportunity there from an investment standpoint is just mind-bogglingly baffling. ARK Invest has been led by Tasha Keeney for the autonomous robotaxi marketplace for, gosh, like almost a decade. I've been following this for such a long time. And basically, they say it's about a $10 trillion market with a T. And so even if Tesla just gets a percentage of that, I mean, right now, Tesla's market cap is at about $1 trillion, give or take. So, I mean, even if they just got 10% of that market, that justifies their entire current market cap for that alone. So it's pretty mind-boggling, the numbers. And so many people just don't understand the ride-sharing marketplace, how it works. So I'll just give a real quick overview of that so that people understand. So about 90% of all ride-sharing rides have only 1 to 2 passengers in it. And so if you think about it, you have the driver in like an Uber or a Lyft or any of the equivalent in, the global marketplace in China. There's like other competitors in like Southeast Asia and stuff like that, South America. Um, if you really think about it, it's mainly the driver and then like 1 or 2 drivers for like, or 1 or 2 riders, excuse me, for like 90% of those. And so that is the reason why the Cybercab, which was released on that event on 10/10/2024 at the Burbank Universal Studios, famous Hollywood studio there, on the awesome event where they had the Tesla the Tesla Optimus bots there serving drinks and everything and stuff like that. They were teleoperated a little bit, but they're getting better now. Still very impressive, even being teleoperated, like being able to have the dexterity, like hold a drink and hand it to people, pour a drink out of the bar and hand it to people and stuff like that. But the whole point that I feel like so many people are missing because they don't understand the ride sharing market is that the most expensive part of that ride is the human. It's about 50% of the ride. So if you're taking an Uber to the airport, say you're taking an Uber to the San Francisco airport and you pay $50 to Uber, about $25 of that is going to the human that drove you there for Uber. But that human is not like taking $25 in profit. It's their car that they're paying for. They have to have insurance on that, which is like the most expensive part of the ride. They have to either pay for their gas or their electricity if it's an EV and any other type of maintenance. You know, cars are very expensive and maintenance can be all over the place depending on the quality of the car and how old the car is and stuff like that. So the whole value proposition of Tesla compared to any other company or entity, including Uber and Lyft and any of the Chinese equivalents of Uber and Lyft for ride sharing, is that Tesla really has vertical integration of the whole experience for robotaxis. So hopefully everybody understands what vertical integration means. I'll go ahead and give a brief overview of that though, just in case, because it's very important. Vertical integration basically means that you, the entity, the company, in this case, Tesla, is controlling as many parts and pieces and processes of the business as possible. So Tesla is actually the manufacturer of the car here for the Tesla robotaxi. For Waymo, for example, Waymo is owned by Google, which is owned by Alphabet, the holding company, and they are buying like very expensive Jaguar, however you pronounce it, I-Paces, the electrical vehicle SUV from Jaguar. And it's that funny skit from SNL with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell at the bar. If you guys don't, if you've never seen that, Google it, YouTube it, check it out. It's pretty funny. Jaguar. Um, and so it's just so ridiculous how expensive it is that Waymo is paying for all of these cars, and it just doesn't scale. Also, their whole model of geofencing everything with lidar just doesn't scale, and so it's like right now Waymo has some ridiculously small amount of cars on the road, total like 2,500 or something, whereas like Tesla's pumping out like 5,000 cars a day in their global factories. They have four of them, by the way. They have the original one in Fremont, which I used to work right next to. That's how I found out about Tesla around 2010. I worked at this startup called 3PAR down the street at the same exit as Tesla. It was the Fremont Auto Mall Parkway exit. And so I go right by the Tesla factory. And that's how I got really interested. I just started Googling, reading about Wikipedia on Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX in like 2010. I'm like, wow, this guy's crazy. This is insane. And I've basically been an Elon fanboy ever since, true OG. Max, I'll get to your question here in just a minute. Let me just wrap up this kind of thesis regarding Tesla and everything and robotaxis. So basically, like, the point is, I watch Solving the Money Problem every day. I watch all these other channels. I watch like Ryan Shaw every day. I watch Tesla Time News with this father-son duo out of Massachusetts who've been doing this show on YouTube for like 10 years now called Tesla Time News. They do it. They used to do it every week. Now they do it every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, like a 20-minute show each time. And I watch all this stuff in like 2 times speed while I have my AirPods in, while I'm like parenting my children. And I homeschool my children, at least for now. My son's going to start kindergarten in about a month from now. And I love my son, but I can't wait. It's just like exhausting parenting kids. It's my daughter will be 3 on the 23rd. My son will be 6 in November. So I'll get to some of that stuff in a little bit. So finishing up on the robotaxi stuff. So it's just like, in my opinion, an incredible opportunity. I think Tesla still has insane levels to grow. I wouldn't be surprised if, the Tesla market cap is at like $5 trillion in 5 years from now, like a 5X. I wouldn't be surprised if it's at $10 trillion. So there's the robotaxi fleet and how profitable it's going to be, because you're deleting the most expensive part of the ride, which is the human, the driver. There's other, like, Tesla's just going to keep scaling the entire business, driving costs down for the manufacturing of the car, the software, the whole experience and everything, to give cheaper and cheaper rides, to just print money like you wouldn't believe. Then there's the autonomous robot, which Elon's called Optimus, which is, named after the Optimus Prime is also from the original 1980s cartoon, and now all the famous Transformer shows or movies with like Shia LaBeouf from years ago and stuff. So it's Optimus. I think they're on Gen 3 of that. I think Gen 4 is going to be coming out soon. I mean, it's incredible the improvements that Tesla's been making. I've been following that very closely over the last 3 years or so since that was first announced. So maybe I'll get to that in a little bit. So, yeah, in case people are not aware, like it's not about car deliveries anymore. That's why Tesla's car deliveries have actually been going down in Q2 this year, 2025, just a couple weeks ago when those were announced, and the market reacted a little bit. The stock went down a few percent, and then it just like kind of rebounded because it's not about car deliveries anymore. It's all about autonomous robo taxis in the short term over the next, like, we'll call it 1 to 2 to 3 years. And over the next, we'll call it like 3 to 10 years, it's going to be all about the Tesla Optimus. So, what I'll just say real quick on that regarding humanoid robots, Elon's predicting that there's going to be more humanoid robots than there are humans. And there's about 8 billion humans on the planet right now. But I think Elon has said in like probably 20 years or so from now, something like that, something like 2045, something like that. You guys can fact check me on that, something like that. But eventually, Elon's predicting that there's going to be more humanoid robots than there are humans. And it makes sense to me just from a scaling standpoint, a business technology standpoint. Because if these things are just like incredibly useful and they're not that expensive and people can afford them, and maybe even governments and corporations might end up buying them for various reasons because they're just so useful, there's such a value proposition for them, then I could totally see that being the case. And Elon always says that the future is going to be weirder than you think. And I just think that that's probably the best way to explain it. In fact, I will say the present is already like weirder than most people know. So I know so many things in my brain because of all the crazy research that I do about how crazy the research or how crazy the present already is that most people don't even know. So maybe I'll share a little bit more tidbits of that on this live stream. We'll see how long I can go. It's almost 11 o'clock. But I'll maybe talk a little bit more about the Tesla Optimus on this live stream. But the final thing that I'll say on that for now is that the reason why the value proposition of investing in Tesla long term, I still believe is so great, is because the Optimus robot is really what you're investing in long term. Because you have Elon now leading XAI, right, which acquired X, formerly Twitter, a few months ago. So XAI owns Twitter. XAI now has the largest amount of GPUs that are actually connected. It was believed that I think only 30,000 GPUs from NVIDIA could be connected. That was kind of the dogma in the AI world just a few months ago, maybe 6 months ago or so, end of last year, 2024. And they just crushed that. XAI just crushed that, standing up and connecting, I believe, 100,000 GPUs at the XAI data center in Memphis. And now I think they've connected like 200,000, or they're going to be doing that soon. Somebody fact check me on that. 200,000 GPUs. And then Elon says they want to get to 1 million, like sometime in some crazy timeline of like sometime like maybe later this year. And he probably will. And the reason Elon can continue to do all these things is because, yeah, everybody knows that Elon's the wealthiest person on the planet, like money wise. But Elon also has so much respect by like the actual engineering community and so many connections. He's networked so well with some of the top, basically the top engineers and tech entrepreneurs and CEOs on the planet. So Jensen Huang, being the founder and CEO, by the way, the longest tenured CEO in Silicon Valley. He founded the company in 1994, NVIDIA. And they have a great relationship, Jensen Huang and Elon Musk. So, of course, Jensen Huang is just going to keep selling as many of his NVIDIA products to Elon as they possibly can, because Elon and Jensen have had a great relationship for many years and almost certainly will continue to for many years. Just assuming both people and companies, Tesla and all of Elon's companies and NVIDIA stay healthy, which, speaking of that, NVIDIA, I believe on Wednesday, today's Friday, just hit $4 trillion market cap for the first time. So it's the very first time that any company on the planet hit $4 trillion in market cap. So NVIDIA is now the most valuable company on the planet because they're the ones making all the hardware that's just driving the entire AI boom right now. So, all right, I've just gone on a tangent of all sorts of things. Max, Eternal Life said, do you think we're close to a iRobot situation with AI? I mean, depends on how you define close, Max. In the grand scale of the universe, 13.7 billion years, yes, 100%. In our meeble, little pathetic 100 years, if we're super, 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 super lucky lifespans as humans, no. Or like, yes, we are close. We are not close from that perspective. We are close from the grand scale of the 13.7 billion years of the universe. So, um, I think it's still going to take many, many years for the iRobot situation to happen with AI. Um, I'll call it at least, hopefully never, obviously, because that was a dystopian movie. Steven Spielberg, I believe, directed that, and Will Smith starred in it. And I think I rewatched that like 2 years ago. I think I just saw it one time when it came out in like 2001, I want to say 2002, something like that. And then I rewatched it like 2 years ago, I think. And in some ways it was like really good still, and in some ways it was just like super cheesy, these dystopian science fiction movies. So no, I don't think that we're anywhere close to that, and I hope it never happens. So on that note, Max, one thing that Elon has said many, many times in video interviews and on X, formerly Twitter, posting stuff, is that Elon thinks that there's probably about an 80% chance that the future is great and a 20% chance that the future is like terrible. And AI, basically just technology just wipes out humans. And so that is the reason why Elon is working so hard at all of his companies. And that's the reason why he helped co-found and donate, I think it was $100 million to OpenAI back in 2015, I believe. And why he called it, Elon is the one that named it OpenAI, because he wanted to be open source. He saw that Google was the only true, they were the leader in AI at the time. And Elon was friends with Larry Page back then. And Elon was having a conversation with Larry Page. This is way back then. It might have been 2014, 13, 15, somewhere around there. And Larry Page just basically said that, he thought that it was okay if AI slash the robots just destroy humanity and take over everything. And Elon was like, whoa, like, I'm not cool with that. I'm a human. You're a human. Like, I'm on team human. And I'm on team human. So I hope whoever's watching this is on team human as well, too, because team human's where it's at. Now, I am like a transhumanist. I will probably end up getting a Neuralink and other types of things. I had LASIK in April of 2009. So that's been over 16 years from now, and I still have great vision. I was just playing basketball at the Lifetime Gym tonight in Folsom a few hours ago, and I was draining threes. Before I had that LASIK surgery in April 2009, I couldn't even see the 3-point. I couldn't even see the basketball goal from beyond the 3-point line without my contacts or glasses or anything. So I'm a true transhumanist in the positive sense of like, I want to do anything that science and technology can safely improve my life. So I don't want to wear glasses. Some people like wearing glasses for whatever reason. They think it makes them look smarter, or they just like it for whatever reason. Like, I don't want to wear glasses. I would rather just have the LASIK surgery as long as I know that it's safe and it's going to last a long time. And so that's what I did. And I'm very happy with that. But I think just like we're all kind of forced to have these smartphones nowadays, and we have social pressures to have smartphones and other technology, social media in our life. I think it's not going to be too long when we're all going to be forced to get a Neuralink or some type of BCI, brain computer interface, is what Neuralink is. And the reason I believe that is because we are in a very competitive world. So unless we somehow are not in a competitive world, we can talk about that when it comes to like UBI, Universal Basic Income. And by the way, Elon says he wants everybody to have UHI, Universal High Income, is Elon's like goal for the long term for humanity, so that everybody can live an awesome, kick-ass life and not to have like horrible stressors and things, worry about money and all these things, and we can kind of be the best version of ourselves. That's the most positive outcome that Elon is working towards. With all of his companies, with Tesla, Optimus Bot, like being there to help do all these mundane, horrible things in your life that we have to do. Like, I'm doing chores and all this nonsense. Yeah, I could hire somebody to come into my house and do these things, but really, I want to be here to raise my own kids and to be here. And I really don't want a stranger in my house. So I do a lot of things around the house, and that's when learning with my AirPods in, my iPhone, like watching all these YouTube channels and downloading really important information in my brain. So I'll talk about that more in a little bit because this live stream is titled "Be Careful Who You Follow." So I want to talk about some of the YouTube channels and influencers that I follow and that I watch and the information that I put into my brain. Um, so where was I going with all this? I just kind of went on a tangent. So the point is, let's finish up on the BCI stuff. So I do think that eventually I will get a Neuralink implant. It will probably be at least 5 years from now, probably more like 10 or maybe even more than that. So I just turned 40 on March 16th of this year. And I got some more gray hairs, balding a little bit more. Kids are stressing me out. And I'm trying to fight aging, biological aging as much as possible. And I can talk a little bit on this live stream about different things that I'm doing. And I'm feeling great, by the way. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So let me try and stick to one thing at a time. So I heard just a couple days ago that I think the Neuralink just did the seventh implant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 implant in a human brain. And I think it was the third that had ALS, maybe the second or third. And I saw a post on that on X. So I follow Elon like very closely on X and have for many, many years. I'm basically an OG like Elon fan, way before most people had even heard of Elon Musk. And I think everything he's doing is incredible. I think he's very misunderstood. And we can talk about why that is. In fact, why don't I just say that real quick? So I went to the University of Kentucky from '03 to '07, and I majored in corporate communications. So it was my sophomore year that I took my first communications course, just Com 101. And then the second course that I took was called History of Mass Media. And I learned a lot about the history of mass media. I learned about like who invented the television, Philo T. Farnsworth on a barn in like Utah, on a farm. He lived in a farm, and really, really fascinating story. By the way, I won't get into all that, but I learned basically how the media works, and it's very different than what most people think. So basically, for about 20 years, since around 2005 or so, I've just understood that corporate legacy media is basically the enemy of humanity. It's a very small group of extremely wealthy people. We're talking about like the 0.0001% of wealth of people on the planet out of the 8 billion people approximately who own approximately the six major media corporations in the Western world. And they hate you and they hate humanity. They don't care about you. They care about making more profit for themselves and their shareholders. And so they'll just lie about like anything. If you look at the church hearings that came out in 1975, Operation Mockingbird was exposed that the CIA was basically paying all the top broadcasters in American media. And that was all exposed, and most people have no idea about that. Even boomers who were like in their 20s at that time, it just wasn't well publicized, even though it actually occurred. And you could verify this in various ways. You can watch the full church hearings on YouTube if you'd like yourself, or you could watch other content creators on YouTube or other platforms give synopsis about this. I watch Mark Dice every day. It's a YouTube channel that I watch every single video that he comes out with. He's a great media analyst. Media analyst is how he brands himself, and I think that's the proper way for him to brand himself. He's down in San Diego. I don't agree with everything that he says, but he's a really good media analyst who shows all sorts of things that most people like just don't know about, especially if they're still in that legacy media spell. If they're still like reading the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times as if it's actual news, not just propaganda. If they're watching CNN or MSNBS as if it's actual news, not just propaganda, then I mean, you're just going to be lost. I feel sorry for people who are still doing that. If I think there are still a few stragglers who still don't understand that that's just propaganda. But you know, I'll try to be a little bit more easy on those people. What I've understood for the last 20 years or so, what I was taught in my corporate communications course, and I took uh, mass media and politics courses like that and stuff like that. What I learned is that our media in the U.S. is the most sophisticated form of propaganda because most Americans, at least 20 years ago, didn't believe it was propaganda. Most people understand that it is now. They understand that like Anderson Cooper is getting paid like $10 million a year to be a talking head on CNN. And he's also on 60 Minutes, which is owned by CBS, which is funny. CBS. Do you see it? Do you see the BS? Um, And I mean, regardless of which side that you're on as far as politics goes, I mean, look what CBS did in that final presidential interview where they interviewed Kamala Harris, and they literally asked her a question, Kamala Harris, and then we saw in the actual video that was released of all the unedited stuff that didn't make it to the CBS broadcast, that they asked Kamala Harris a question, and her answer was like a bumbling idiot, and so they cut that out. CBS cut that out, and then they plopped in another answer that Kamala Harris gave to a different question, but they gave it as if she was answering that question, which is, of course, like not. Uh, there's no integrity in that journalism. So CBS just, and the point is, stuff happens like that all the time in legacy media. They edit things out of context all the time to paint the narrative that they want you to see. So I'll just say this real briefly. In that sophomore year class that I had, history of mass media, I had this tenured professor who was in his 70s, little chubby guy with like longer hair, and he just didn't give a fuck. If you know tenured professors, like he just did not care. He was just in his own world. And but he said on the very first day of class and right before he handed out the final, which by the way was the only test I ever had like this in any level of uh, school, high school, middle school, elementary school, college. It was write in. You had to write in every single answer and you had to spell every single word perfectly or you got it wrong. So he graded it on a scale. He was like, nobody gets A's in my class. If you get a B, then you get an A. And if you get a C, you get a B in any event. So he said this on the very first day of class. And right before he handed out the final exam, he reminded us again. He said, the media cannot tell you what to think. They just tell you what to think about. So what he means by that is that the media is the one controlling the narrative. The legacy media have their headlines, they have their agenda. They're constantly telling you like what you should be thinking about. And now they've even moved towards like more opinion of like what you should think about what you should be thinking about. But if you have any functioning gray matter and you have critical thinking skills and you have an IQ over, the temperature in the room right now, which is about 71 degrees Fahrenheit, you should hopefully be able to realize that there are owners of that media and they have a certain agenda, and that's why they're pushing like whatever agenda they are. And you need to be thinking critically enough to understand that and understand why they're pushing what they're pushing. And so we can get into everything that's going on with like Jeffrey Epstein right now and how that's a very important story and stuff. But I'm going to go back to the chat because Max is in here. So Max said, with the continued advancement of AI to replace humans in the workforce, UHI will be needed. Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm a free market capitalist, but I'm a free market capitalist for like the world we're living in now and previous history. If AI and technology in general continues to explode in the way that I think that it will in my lifetime, like I said, I'm 40 and I care about my kids as well too, and my kids' kids. I care about the future of humanity. I do believe there's going to be a point where robots and AI in general are just going to be so good, it's just going to displace like almost every single job. It will only be the most creative jobs and the actual business leaders that are like the CEOs who are running the business, who will be the ones that I think will still be able to get paid. So we'll look at, probably when I say creative, I mean like musicians, any type of Hollywood filmmakers, movie entertainment in general. So that includes gaming, sports. Sports is big, especially sports like live streaming. I'm doing a live stream right now for that very reason. There will be certain niches where you'll have people that can continue to make like exorbitant amounts of money. But for most people, whether you are an attorney, and a knowledge worker, a white class person, stockbroker, Wall Street, stuff like that, engineers, teacher, anything, eventually AI will be better than you. AI and robotics will be better than what you can do. And so that's going to be difficult for a lot of people's purpose, because a lot of people get their purpose from like their actual career. A lot of women get their purpose from like their family. I don't though. I get my purpose from just like life. I just enjoy life. So for me, like losing a job or something like that, that's not going to like in any way destroy my perception of myself or my purpose in life or my self-esteem or anything like that. Like I'm way past that, but most people are not, and I recognize that. So, by the way, Naval Ravikant talks about how self-esteem is simply the reputation that you have with yourself, and I think that's the best way to think about it. So, basically, if you know that you're a bad person, then you probably have low self-esteem because you're with yourself like at all times. So you know you're a bad person if you're a bad person. You know stupid, horrible shit that you've done if you've done it. So the way to build good self-esteem is just to try to be the best version of yourself, to actually be a good person, even when nobody's looking, when nobody's paying attention, when you think it might not matter. It does. I have a little secret for you in case you're not aware. Everything matters. Everything that you do in reality matters. It all matters, even if you think it doesn't. So that's probably the best way that I could answer that. Yeah, we'll see, Max. I mean, we'll see how long this takes to play out with humanoid robots, with AI displacing jobs. Here's another secret that most people don't realize, but it should be totally intuitive. Um, Governments are supposed to actually serve the people and work for their citizens, and they're supposed to protect their citizens. We know that most governments don't actually do that, though. But a lot of the reason the government doesn't do that is because the people don't demand it. At least they don't demand it enough and in enough mass percentage for the government to actually deliver on that. So if we do get to a point where the robots and AI in general do kind of take legitimately all or most of the jobs, we'll call it like 90% of the jobs, then there's got to be some type of a plan. And hopefully that plan is not just killing all the humans because we're not just here as on Earth to be, work to be slaves and to make and for like money and everything. Um, we're here to enjoy and experience reality however we see fit, as long as we are following the voluntarism principle. If you look at my wallpaper right now on YouTube, it talks about voluntarism and solving aging. And voluntarism, in case you're not familiar with that phrase, is that basically like, hey, as adults, children are a little different. The philosophy of voluntarism doesn't exactly jive with children because children are different and they need to be kind of parented and have certain responsibilities and discipline. But for humans, it's like we should all be interacting, communicating with each other on a voluntary basis. And we are all, for the most part, doing that, except for one exception, that's government. You can't just tell the government to like F off like you can your neighbor in a certain scenario or your boss if you're financially fit and you don't want to work there anymore because you don't like your boss or, like go on and go just think about all the different types of people in your life. You can most of the time, if you're intelligent, get negative people out of your life. And that's what I've done, I think, a really good job of doing over the course of my life of just surrounding myself with like the best people in person and on the internet. So that comes back to the title of this live stream, Be Careful Who You Follow. It's actually even deeper than that. It's be careful what information that you're putting into your brain. People are obsessed with like the food that they're eating. Like, are you, carnivore, vegan, whatever. It's like, yeah, that's important. We can talk about food and diet and stuff like that. But like, you really need to be careful about what information that you're putting into your brain, because that's going to have probably the most impactful um, that's going to be probably the biggest impact on your life and how your life turns out and how happy you are. So with the continued advancement of AI to replace humans in the workforce, UHR will be needed. Yeah, we will see. We will see. I hope that we can get to the point where we can have companies like Tesla generating so many Optimus humanoid robots called Optimus at this point in time that are creating so much value in the marketplace, and Tesla is generating so many revenues that Tesla can be taxed on those, and that those taxes could then go to give us all like UHI. Like that's how Elon basically sees it playing out. So Elon put in, I don't know, 4, 5 months of his life, like focusing on Doge. And before that, he put in 3 or so solid months, I think, of his life to get Trump elected. And he did those things because Elon is very, very worried about the national debt um, in the US, which I am as well, too. And I have been for a very long time, since 2008. And it's at $37 trillion, by the way, right now, in case people aren't aware. But that's just $37 trillion of the national debt. It's about another $37 trillion in entitlements, promises that the government has made to US citizens. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. It's about another $37 trillion. So we have somewhere around $74 trillion of either national debt or promises to be paid to American citizens in the future. And that's a lot of money. If you can stop and think about that for a second, it's a lot to fathom. And so Elon is very worried about that, rightfully so, because countries have gone bankrupt like all the time. If you read history, if you understand history, like it happens all the time. Fiat currencies hyperinflate, happens all the time. It's what actually brought Hitler into power. And it's very, very scary to think about the US dollar hyperinflating because it's the world's reserve currency. US is the greatest superpower the world's ever known. We're the largest economy on the planet with the best leading technology. And so if the US dollar hyperinflates, we're in big, big trouble. I don't even want to imagine a world like that. It'll probably just be World War III. I don't see any other scenario where it's not. So that's what Elon's worried about, in case people are not aware. Like there's all this garbage and propaganda in the media, Elon bad, and stuff like that. We can talk about even why that is. I'll talk about that because most people don't know like why that is. And I'm extremely confident on why that is because I've followed this stuff for over a decade. But that's what Elon is genuinely worried about. That's the main reason why Elon wanted to elect Trump. And that's also the main reason Elon wanted to work on Doge and, help expose all the waste, fraud, and abuse of government. And that's also why Elon and Trump had the falling out, because Elon felt like he, literally was sleeping in his DC office, working night and day for months at a time on end, putting kind of his businesses on hold: Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, Boring Company, XAI, X. He's got a lot of businesses now, a lot of people that are working for him that, he is trying to accomplish all these missions that are very important. I believe they're important, and Elon obviously believes they're important. He put all that on hold to kind of just really focus on Doge. And Elon felt like it was kind of a slap in the face that this big, beautiful bill, as they call it, I don't think that's what it is going to probably add somewhere around $5 trillion to the deficit over the next few years. We'll see how it actually plays out. I know there's controversy over. Some people say it's only going to be 2 trillion. Some people say 3. Other people say 5. Like, we'll see how it all plays out. But the point is, we're already in $37 trillion of debt. In case you're not aware, this year, the U.S. is set to pay more money on just interest on that $37 trillion of debt. Over $1 trillion in interest is what we're set to pay at the U.S., which is higher than the entire defense spending, which is, I think, like $880 billion, something like that. You can fact check me. Maybe it's $900 billion. But the interest on the debt. So what is interest? It's just literally, we're just paying money to the creditors that own our debt. And does that interest you? It doesn't interest me as an American, citizen. That doesn't interest me at all. What would interest me is if we were paying no interest and had no debt. Like, why do we have debt at all? Why are we in a debt-based monetary system? We can talk about that as well too. The fiat system and why I got interested in Bitcoin about a decade ago. 2013 is when I really got interested in it. That's when I connected with Andres Antonopoulos on LinkedIn after watching like 3 Joe Rogan Experience podcasts with Andres Antonopoulos talking about Bitcoin. And I got very lucky because I knew enough about technology, and I worked as a mortgage broker from 2007 to 2008 when the mortgage crash happened that almost imploded the entire global economy. So that's how I really understood Bitcoin before most people. And I was fortunate for that. But in any event, in case people are not aware, like, I'm 100% positive, like, this is what Elon's basically saying. So I think Trump is rightfully so trying to play within the political system of just trying to get this bill accomplished to deliver on some of the promises that Trump made during the campaign. But Elon, as you know, does not like to play within the system. Elon goes in and disrupts. Elon looks at a industry, a system, whether it be the automobile industry, the space industry, before that, the banking industry with PayPal. Before that, Zip2 was Elon's first company that he founded. Like, basically, Elon was writing the software for the very first maps, GPS and stuff on the internet. And if you're not aware, that was Elon's first company. Elon just goes in and he looks at any industry or system and he finds out like what things are believed to be just the way they are by the marketplace, by the industry, but he just takes a first principles approach by looking at the laws of physics and saying like, well, it doesn't have to be this way. I'm gonna like fix it and make it better. I'm gonna disrupt it. Um, so in the same sense, in this scenario here, Elon's just basically saying like, hey, like we don't have to work within this system, this two-party system, Republicans and Democrats. I call them Bloodlicans and Democrips, like gangs, like the Bloods and the Crips. I got that from Jesse Ventura, by the way. I think he wrote a book about that in like 2010 or 11. I read that book. It was a great book. And I watched every episode of Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory show on True TV back in like 2010 or 11. Really good show. Jesse Ventura's kind of fallen off though. I think he voted for Kamala. In any event, I do think that these Republicans and Democrats are basically gangs. They're actually way worse than Bloods and Crips, because if you think about it, the Bloods and the Crips are just doing their gang violence in their little pockets of physical locations in like South Central LA or whatever, maybe some other locations as well too, as their little gangs have spread. But the Bloodlicans and the Democrats are doing like massive casualties all across the U.S. and really the world is where their corruption permeates to. So I do support Elon in creating the America Party, and I actually might even start getting involved in that because I've thought we've needed a legitimate a third party in the U.S. For basically my entire adult life. I've never been a registered Republican or Democrat and never will be. I don't see any scenario where I would be. But who knows? Never say never. Max says, who are you hang out with? Yo. Isabella Brown says, yo. What's up, Isabella Brown? Max, I don't know what you mean by who you hang out with. Are you a caveman? You want to rephrase the question? We hang out, Max, digitally. You know, I haven't seen you since 2020 in person when you were stayed at my house in Folsom, California, and at our lake house in Clear Lake, which, by the way, we were just back up at our Clear Lake lake house last week for 4th of July. Had an awesome time with my wife and her parents and her Aunt Terry and Uncle Brent and their nephew or their son, Nick, who lives down in Santa Monica, and his girlfriend Kaya. We had a great time. A little sunburnt though. Max says he needed this funding for ICE, for example, to accomplish one of the biggest things he campaigned on, which was to fix the immigration problem. Yeah, obviously we have a huge immigration problem. I agree with Mark Dice. It's more of an invasion problem. And it's funny, you know, one of my neighbors on Instagram a few weeks ago shared to her story this other like a reel of some woman talking about like, hey, if you voted for Trump, then just like unfollow me and like you're a horrible person or whatever, and like how could you? And she like also shared as like some woman crying as she was like deported, and her daughter was like crying. I think it was like a 16-year-old daughter or something like that. It's like, well, you're here illegally. Like the whole thing that Trump has been saying, and that like pretty much every other politician has been saying, like at the presidential level, including Obama, including Bush W before him, including Clinton back in the 90s, and you know George H.W. Bush before that, and Reagan. It was just like, hey, we either have laws or we don't have laws. We either have a border or we don't have a border. By definition, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. So we just haven't been enforcing these border laws for some period of time, and Biden just took that to the extreme, just basically opening the borders for just flooding and immigrations. You know, the estimates are all over the place. It's hard to know what to believe because, you know, they just had open borders, just letting them flood in. I believe there's about 360 million Americans, and there could be as many as 30, 40, even 50 million illegal immigrants in the U.S., depending on, you know, we'll never know. So you combine that with all of our social policies that we have, all of our welfare policies. Like, for example, last year in 2024, the governor of California here, Gavin Newsom, he said that if you are a human in California, you can't be denied healthcare, even if you're an illegal immigrant. What do you think that did to our healthcare system? It just flooded it. So what does that do for, like, you know, tax paying, you know, abiding citizens like myself and my children? Of course, it's going to be more difficult for us to get the proper health care. When any illegal immigrant who can just, and what do you think? It's all about the incentives, right? So Charlie Munger, who just died a few months ago, if you're not aware who he was the number two to Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway for years. He was a multi-billionaire. He died in his 90s. And he would always say, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. So it's all about the incentives, right? So, I'm not hating on these illegal immigrant people. If I was in a different situation, like maybe I would end up coming here as well, too. I'm just stating the obvious. Like we either have laws or we don't. We either have borders or we don't. So imagine if you're a illegal immigrant, coming in here from anywhere else in the world to America, and you hear that there's free healthcare in California, free healthcare in New York, or you can get, free hotel rooms at like $300 a night, luxury hotels in New York. Well, where do you think you're going to go? You're probably going to go to those places. Like these people aren't stupid. They hear these things and they're going to go where they perceive the best incentive situation is for them. So the point is, it's like, yeah, we want to be compassionate people. We want to help people out, but there's all these old sayings like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so these intentions might sound really good and some people might agree with them, but if you extrapolate this out and scale this, our system just cannot handle this, especially when we're in $37 trillion of debt. Like people need to really understand how serious our national debt situation is. So I'll just tell a real brief story on that. It was 2008 when, after I moved to California in June of 2008, I was working at a company called Wei Laboratories. WEI is a Chinese company founded by this Chinese married couple. It was traditional Chinese medicine. And, I've always been watching YouTube and constantly learning on the internet and stuff. And I learned about this website called nationaldebtclock.org. You can go there right now and check it out. And I remember looking at it and said that the national debt was $8 trillion at the time. And I was like, this is insane. And I would tell some of my colleagues about it. Not a single one of them had any idea about it. I would like go over to their cubicle, to their desk, and like type in nationaldebtclock.org and show it to them. And they were all just blown away. They're like, whoa, I had no idea. Well, because we don't talk about this. Like people aren't, like most people are just not educated and they don't understand what that means. I think it's like every single man, woman, and child in America, every single American citizen has like $140,000 of debt. You can go to nationaldebtclock.org and see for yourself. It shows you all the statistics. Maybe it's like 240,000 now. In any event, the point is like we're all in a certain amount of debt. If you just take that 37 trillion and divide that by the American citizens, which is like I said, I think about 360 million. And so the point is, this is just not sustainable. It's just simple math. It's going to get to a point where we won't even be able to pay the interest on the debt, which, like I said, is over $1 trillion a year right now. And that's scary. So I will just say personally, as a 40-year-old man now with like gray hair and balding, like if you were to ask me in 2008 what I thought the national debt would be at in 2025 and what the interest payment on the debt would be annually, I would have never guessed that we would let it to get to 37 trillion and over $1 trillion to pay the interest. I would have said, like, that's clown world. There's no way that people are this stupid and the powers that shouldn't be are this evil and this brazen to let it get this bad. But here we are. So we really need to get our house in order, so to speak, as the US and drive down this debt and spending and deficit. And so that's basically in general what Elon's saying. Is very clear. I mean, if you follow Elon on X, Elon shares charts and this stuff. Like he's been doing this for years. If you've watched the interviews on YouTube and stuff and on video of Elon for years, like I have, like it's very, very clear. This is what Elon says is the most important thing, because none of Elon's companies matter if America goes bankrupt. Do you realize all of Elon's companies are headquartered in America? If America goes bankrupt and the US dollar hyperinflates, I mean, I don't think people understand like what that really means. I mean, literally in like 2019, I remember there was a story of when Venezuela's currency hyperinflated, people were literally eating zoo animals because they were starving. Look it up. I didn't just make that up. I remember reading legitimate stories about that. So it's really crazy. In Weimar, Germany, before Hitler came to power, the German Deutschmark, their fiat currency, hyperinflated, and people took their entire life savings, all the cash they had, sold their homes, got all the cash out. They had wheelbarrows of cash and it wouldn't even buy a loaf of bread. I mean, I know this sounds crazy if you don't understand like economics and you haven't heard this type of stuff, but this is what can legitimately happen. So this is what Elon fears, and you should get educated about this and fear it as well. So Max said, "You are who you hang out with." Oh yeah, of course, Max. I understand. Yeah, yeah. You are who you hang out with. There's a book that was written years ago, and it was based off like scientific research at a university that like you basically are like the six closest people that you spend the most time with. That's basically who you are. Your values, the way you think, the way you act, and things like that. So yeah, just basically. And we're living in more and more of a digital world. So that's why I said earlier, like, just try and put really, really good information in your brain. That's why the title of this video is Be Careful Who You Follow, right? Audit your own thoughts, right? Take some time. Like, let's talk about meditation. So I got my transcendental meditation certification back in like 2011 in Palo Alto. I worked with this great TM transcendental meditation coach teacher named Mike, and he actually did TM and learned it from the leader of TM like back in the 70s, who like brought TM transcendental meditation to the Western world. Um, with the Maharishi. And so I learned from him. That's how I learned TM. And I was kind of obsessed with TM for like a certain period of time. And then I also got into mindfulness meditation, and I learned some other forms of meditation. But it wasn't until I think 2018 that Naval Ravikant really talked about meditation in some podcasts and on X, Twitter at the time. And he talked about like meditation is really like anytime that you're just like stopping and thinking, or you could literally just be sitting at a park and watching children play, like anything that just kind of like gets you to kind of like relax and maybe think differently about something, and anything that's like good for your brain. So that's the way I want you to think about meditation. So for me, I don't really do TM very often anymore, but one of the most powerful forms of meditation that I try to do daily, I don't do it every day, but I do it most days, is I try to audit my own thoughts. So I try to think like, if I'm having problems in my life, I try to think like, why am I having this problem? What did I do to create this problem in my life? And how do I solve this problem? How do I like get out of this or change this, or how do I make sure this doesn't happen again? And so I think just like auditing your own thoughts are like really, really important. So I encourage people to kind of think about that a little bit more when it comes to your information diet. So just because you've been watching like a certain channel on YouTube or reading certain articles from certain legacy media outlets, it doesn't mean that you need to keep doing that. If these entities are not serving you, if they are actually like making you a worse and worse person in your beliefs, then you need to stop. This is why they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because we're very habitual creatures. We get into these habits, these patterns, and we just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy. So auditing your own thoughts can be a really, really powerful way for you to kind of reevaluate, the life that you want to try and create, because we are creators. We are always like constantly creating the life that we have. And if you don't like the life that you have, then you need to change things in your life. Okay. So with that being stated, just think about the information that you put into your brain. So I'll tell you, I'm going to go through some Rolodex of some YouTube channels that I watch like regularly. I already said Solving the Money Problem. I watch his channel every single day. He literally uploads a video every single day. He normally does it like right around now. It's about 11:30 Pacific time right now. He uploads in Australia around like 9, 10, or 11. I either watch it at night before I go to bed or like in the morning, usually when I'm like on my iPhone, AirPods, doing stuff around the house. I watch Ryan Shaw. That's how I know so much about Tesla. Ryan Shaw does content that's more about like Tesla, the cars, the actual technology, vehicle like delivery numbers, pricing of the cars, technology that might be changing on them. That's how I know a lot about them. By the way, my wife and I, we own 4 Teslas. We usually use one or two for ourselves, and then rent out a couple others as well too. So I have 2 of them rented out and 2 of them in the garage right there. And so I know a lot about the actual Tesla cars, not only because I've been an investor in Tesla, the company, since 2012, but I've also been following the news and Elon very, very closely for over 13 years. But I also own 4 Teslas and rent them out. So when you own them and rent them out, you learn a lot of things about the cars, plus all the content that I watch. So I highly recommend Ryan Shaw, RyanShaw. He's just a individual content creator down in Los Angeles. He does a video almost every single day, And if you want to learn more about Tesla's, the cars, check out his channel. And then Mark Dice, I said I watch his channel. Every single video he does, I've seen every single video he's done since like 2020, and he does a video like almost every day. He's kind of slowed down a little bit. He maybe does 5 videos a week. And like I said, he's a media analyst, and I don't agree with everything that Mark Dice says. This isn't like, oh, any of these people, like, I don't agree with everything that they say. Heck, I don't even agree with everything I've probably said on this podcast. Like, we're all changing, dynamic people. And, if I made a replica of myself, exact replica, genetics, memory, everything, how long would it take for me to disagree with myself? Like, probably not that long, because we're all changing, learning people, changing our environment. At least hopefully we are. So my point is not to tell you that like these channels of stuff that I watch are like perfect people or anything like that, but it's where I learn things in ways that I probably won't be able to learn in any other way. That's why I like these channels that I'm mentioning to you. So Mark Dice, being a media analyst, he has shown me all sorts of things that I would have just like never known about just the media, politics, and stuff. So I highly recommend Mark Dice, his channel. Some other channels that I watch, Now You Know, with the father-son duo, Zach and Jesse. They're in Massachusetts. They've been doing the show for about 10 years, and I love their show. They do it every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, all about Elon and his businesses and stuff like that. And then Max said, surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Exactly, Max, correct. So it's 11:30 here. I think I've gone for about an hour. It's probably later than I would normally stay up. I got kids to parent in the morning and stuff like that. I just wanted to get back into kind of like live streaming, sharing more of my thoughts. So there's a few other things that I definitely want to say before I end this. So Jeffrey Epstein, that's some big news going on right now. Obviously, Trump campaigned on this as one of the promises that he made. Promises made, promises not kept. Shocker. No, not at all. We're going to build a big, beautiful wall. Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Remember when Trump said that in 2015, 2016? Yeah, if you believe that, I'm sorry. Yeah, you got conned. Yeah, Trump's a con man. He's a con. So if, in case you're not aware, con man, CON, is not like con, like pro and con. That's not where the word comes from. Con comes from the word confidence man, CON, confidence. So Trump is like your ultimate con man. He's trying to build confidence. That's why he's been such a successful politician. He says these ridiculous things all the time that just like aren't true. He speaks in like hyperbole and stuff, but it's kind of hard to tell. Is he really speaking hyperbole? Like, or should I take him literally? Like, you can't take anything that Trump says literally. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before, right? He says stuff like that. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I've seen this before. What are you talking about? What are some other Trumpisms that he says? You're going to win. When he said this in 2016, you're going to be winning so much, you're going to be tired of winning. Is anybody tired of winning? Like, how are we supposed to respond to these type of things, right? He's just like a salesman, con man. And so when it comes to the Epstein stuff, like when Trump was campaigning in the last cycle in 2023 and 2024, and Trump was saying that like he was going to release the Epstein files on day one. I'll end the Russia-Ukraine war on day one. I'll end the, Israel war with Hamas on day one. Like, did anybody really believe this stuff? I'm sure there are people out there that believed it, but like, no, I never believed this stuff. And unfortunately, it's just me getting older, and I've seen this story before, and I'm just not going to be fooled. And with Epstein right now, Trump, in case you're not aware, Trump promised that he would release the full Epstein files unredacted. And not only has that not happened, but just a few days ago, when Trump was asked in the Oval Office about Epstein, or sorry, not in the Oval Office, I think he was in like the little executive conference room with meeting with his cabinet, I believe is where it was. I only saw clips of it. I didn't see the full thing. Trump just pushed back the reporters like, really? We're talking about Epstein right now with all the great things that I'm doing and whatever, trying to end the war. Like, we're talking about Epstein, this guy again? This is old news. And it's like, no, dude, are you really this out of touch? So there's so many things going on right now. I've been watching Tim Pool videos about this. So maybe I could share some of my YouTube history. of videos that I've watched, but basically Tim Pool interviewed Laura Logan about this for like a half-hour video I just watched earlier today. I highly recommend you check that one out. Tim Pool also interviewed Mike Chernovich about this. I watched it yesterday. It might have been from a few days ago. And they went through like Tim Pool and Mike Cernovich and Laura Logan went through like all of these like kind of like conspiracy theory scenarios. Like, why is Trump behaving this way? Is he just like an old 80-year-old man who's like that far out of touch with his base, the people that got him elected and his supporters, the MAGA base, that he doesn't understand that Epstein is like really important to them and to us? And like, if you're paying attention, it's really important to the world. Like, in case you're not aware, Epstein 100% sex trafficked like children, like lots of them, to the most elite people on the planet, former presidents, Bill Clinton, wealthiest man in the world for many, many years, if not decades, Bill Gates, um, royalty, Prince Henry, and the United Kingdom. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on, right? Um, Trump was involved with them to a certain extent. Trump was on, I think, at least one flight of Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. Now, I think Trump was on it with his wife and kids, and I'm not insinuating that Trump did anything bad. Donald Trump did anything bad regarding like Epstein and sex trafficking. Clearly, what Epstein's currency was blackmail. And clearly, Epstein was some type of an intelligence asset, almost certainly for Mossad, which is like, in case you're not aware, like the CIA equivalent for Israel, or the intelligence agency for Israel, Mossad. And so this is obviously really dark, deep stuff that like Alex Jones was talking about over a decade ago, and people thought they were crazy. People thought Alex Jones was crazy. Even, Joe Rogan, Alex's friend, was like, dude, like, there's no way this is real. Well, it was real. Um, Whitney Webb, I believe is her name. Maybe it's not Webb. I think that's somebody that I know. This lady Whitney, I've watched a number of YouTube videos and interviews about her. She's written a whole book about Epstein and stuff. Now, it's just a web of craziness. The point is, Donald Trump campaigned that he would expose the full Epstein files, and now he's retracting on that. And now that he's in his second term, whenever a U.S. president is in their second term, they just don't have to like deliver on their campaign promises anymore, because they're not going to get elected a third term. Well, Trump's talking about that, but it's in our Constitution. That will never happen. At least it shouldn't. Never say never, but it shouldn't. And I will fight that tooth and nail. That's a hard line for me. That's part of our system. And he doesn't deserve it anyways with the way he's behaving right now. Going back on all of his promises. When it comes to JFK, that was all supposed to be released unredacted. Hasn't happened. 9/11, all sorts of things. So there's a final thing that I have to talk about before I end this live stream. It is the research that I've been doing over the last few months on UFOs, UAPs, which is UAP is unidentified anomalous phenomenon. It used to be called unidentified aerial phenomenon, but the reason they changed aerial to anomalous is because there's many there's evidence and video recorded from like U.S. military fighter pilot equipment and stuff like that on radar and video of like these crazy UFOs or UAPs going at like crazy speeds, basically defying the laws of what mainstream physics calls. Obviously, we don't understand in the mainstream physics the way that physics really is. There are certain people on this planet that I think do understand physics way more than the mainstream does. But these entities, you can see videos, and Joe Rogan showed this when he interviewed, I believe, Mark Faber. If you want to look up that Joe Rogan podcast, it was a really good one. Mark Faber is the guy who saw this UAP, I think 60 miles off the coast of San Diego in 2004. It's called the Tic Tac, because it's in the shape of like a Tic Tac, like the candy. And he saw it go from like 80,000 to 20,000 feet on radar, like proven within like a second. And really, the radar, I think, just starts at 80,000. So it was probably like even higher up. So we don't know. We don't have any type of devices in the mainstream world that we know of that's public that can do anything like that. But yet it's happening. And so getting back to the UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, the reason they're calling that now is because we have video and radar of some of these like hovering in the air, like essentially defying the law of mainstream physics, going like super fast, moving like super quick, but then also going like under the water, under the ocean, then coming out back over into the air and then back under the water. So that's why they're not just called unidentified flying objects now, they're called unidentified anomalous phenomenon because they can appear. Some of these craft can go in the air, underwater, and yeah, maybe even underground. Who knows? Crazy stuff. So I've been researching all this stuff like very thoroughly over the last few months. Deep dive. I've gone down the rabbit hole on UFOs, UAPs, like here and there over the last like 15, 20 years. Through various times, I've been a fan of Dr. Stephen Greer for many years. I watched his serious documentary in 2013 and told my friends and family about it back then. I remember watching Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was one of the Apollo astronauts. I watched him do interviews before he died, and like I remember watching these in like 2012 or 13 on YouTube. And I remember that specifically because I lived in Sunnyvale in an apartment at the time with my girlfriend at the time, now wife. And I went down the rabbit hole at that point in time, and he was talking about all these crazy things. Edgar Mitchell, and I viewed him as being a very credible guy. I mean, he was an Apollo astronaut, and he was talking about, he talked about, yes, we've recovered crashed craft from aliens and stuff like that. I'm like, whoa, like this is a pretty credible guy saying these pretty remarkable things. So yeah, I've gone down the rabbit hole here and there. I remember watching Jeremy Corbell's documentary about Bob Lazar back in 2019 when it came out on Netflix, called Bob Lazar, UFO and Flying Saucers. And then I watched the Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell um, Joe Rogan podcast back in 2019 that was kind of promoting that documentary because Joe Rogan watched Jeremy Corbell's documentary, UFO, or Bob Lazar, UFO and Flying Saucers, and loved it and wanted to get Jeremy and Bob and Joe's studio. If you go to the Joe Rogan Experience official YouTube channel, click on videos, then click on popular. It's just an algorithm that filters for the most popular videos, the most viewed videos. And that Jeremy Corbell, Bob Lazar video from 2019 podcast is number one. I think it has 64 million views as of right now, as I'm recording this live stream. So the point is, I went back and watched that Bob Lazar documentary again, maybe 2 weeks ago, and the podcast with Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell and from 2019. I watched that again. And then I just watched like tons and tons of Bob Lazar content. So I've created a Bob Lazar playlist on my public YouTube channel if you want to check it out. If you want to learn more about Bob Lazar, he's probably the most credible person to talk about, alien crash craft that he says that he worked on at this place called S4, which is 15 miles south of Area 51 in the Nevada desert. I think like 150 miles north of Las Vegas, something like that, near Papoose Lake. And he says that S4 is like built into the side of this mountain, and very, very secret program. That he said that they had 9 alien craft there, and he was just working on one of them, trying to basically reverse engineer it. I could talk forever about it, but that's the basic gist of it. Super fascinating. Bob Lazar basically talked about this stuff publicly for the first time in 1989 because he was worried that his superiors, basically the powers that shouldn't be, the deep state, were going to potentially hurt him or his wife or kill them both or something. So Bob Lazar came public with this story with the local Las Vegas newscast, with George Knapp being the reporter there, bringing the story out publicly. Bob Lazar did that as an insurance policy, is what Bob says. So that's why Bob came out with this story. And so there's like a 45-minute or so interview of Bob Lazar from 1989. I rewatched that a few weeks ago. And what's so remarkable about this is it's now 36 years later since 1989. And Bob Lazar's story has been extremely consistent. And multiple things that Bob Lazar has said have now been proven true. Like Bob Lazar in 1989 talked about this element 115 was actually the fuel for this alien spacecraft that Bob Lazar was reverse engineering. And most people said there is no element 115. Like, what are you talking about? Like this Bob Lazar guy's crazy. Well, I believe it was 2017, somewhere around there at CERN, the Large Hadron Collider there. That's, in Switzerland and stuff. I actually went there to CERN in 2018 with my wife when we were in Switzerland and France. It's on the border of like Switzerland and France. In 2017, I believe, you can Google this and fact check it for yourself. The Large Hadron Collider actually created, I think for like a millisecond, like a split second, they created element 115 and then it like dissipated. But they proved that element 115 like does exist. They created a tiny little bit of it, but I think smashing particles together at like almost the speed of light, and they created that element 115. So Bob Lazar is basically proven right on that. And so Bob Lazar has been asked like, hey, well, how do you like create element 115? And basically, Bob Lazar says, well, there could be parts in the universe where it's actually formed naturally. There could be other entities in the universe that are intelligent enough to be able to create copious amounts of it to be able to use it as fuel for the spacecraft, or it could be both. But he doesn't know. But he said that they had it, and that's what they used to fuel it. And I believe that Bob Lazar actually took some of that element 115 in 1989 from S4, and I believe he still has it. In Jeremy Corbell's documentary in 2019 called Bob Lazar, UFOs and Flying Saucers, Bob Lazar, UFOs, or Area 51 and Flying Saucers, Jeremy Corbell shows that all these federal agencies, like not just the FBI, not just the DEA, like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, like all these federal agencies raided Bob Lazar's business. And they were clearly looking for something. Like they weren't just doing this because Bob didn't pay his taxes or something like that. They thought, I think they, meaning the powers that shouldn't be, all these alphabet soup federal government agencies, were looking for the element 151 area, looking for the element 115. It's late. I was mixing area 51 with like element 115 there. Sorry about that. But yeah, so basically, like, I believe Bob Lazar probably has this element 115, like a small sample of it or something, and has been keeping it all this time. In any event, there's all these other things that Bob Lazar talked about. Bob Lazar was talking about gravity being a wave in 1989. Mainstream physics was basically saying that gravity was actually a particle. I think it was in 2015 that for the very first time, and I remember this was mainstream news. This was a decade ago. Scientists kind of showed and agreed that gravity is actually a wave. They detected gravitational waves like somewhere out in the universe. So that's another like positive for Bob Lazar. There's other things Bob said when he checked into S4. He would put his hand on this like hand like scanner thing that would like scan the bones in his hands, saying that like every single person has very unique bones. Just like every single person, we have unique fingerprints, we have unique handprints. Nobody's exactly the same. Same thing with your bone structure. Apparently, everybody's is unique. So there's like this bone scanner thing that he said he would put his hand on to like scan in to get his little, card to get into to the S4 location, the secret government facility that he said that he worked at. And he would describe this hand thing, device, and people were like, that doesn't exist. Like, what are you talking about? Nobody's ever heard of that. And then this is also in the 2019 Jeremy Corbell documentary. It came out like maybe a year before that in like 2018 that like this device did actually exist. And they show like pictures of it in the documentary and also on the Joe Rogan podcast. In any event, like you should check it out. It's the highest viewed Joe Rogan podcast on his Joe Rogan's official YouTube channel for a reason. It's extremely fascinating stuff. And so this is the final point that I'll say on this for now. If this is true, then our whole global economy is basically fake. Because if we have like anti-gravity, 0-point energy, free energy devices, then what that means is our whole global economy, which is based off of like essentially oil, fossil fuels, is fake and unnecessary. And we're polluting the whole earth and doing all this for basically no reason when we could have free energy. And so that's what I basically believe. I believe that Bob Lazar is correct. I've been doing all this research. I believe there is free energy devices out there that other engineers, brilliant engineers, have created on their own in many different ways. By the way, it's not just like one thing. Like there's many different ways to create these free energy devices from what I understand. And there's this documentary that used to be behind a paywall. It's now free. I watched on Amazon Prime Video a couple weeks ago. It's called The Lost Century. Dr. Stephen Greer is a producer and stars in it and stuff. It came out in 2023. And it's called The Lost Century because Stephen Greer is basically saying we've actually had these free energy 0-point energy devices for about a century. and he shows lots of video and documents of different brilliant engineers from like the 1980s and some of the 1990s that have created some of these devices. This guy in like 1995 had this device that he said could run on water. He converted the car to run on water, on water, not just hydrogen, but water. And I remember, this is crazy. My senior year at St. Xavier High School, I graduated in 2003. My spring semester, 2003, I had this class called study hall, which is basically a joke. You didn't have to do anything. You just sit there in the study hall and be quiet, or you could nap. Like, nobody cared. You're basically a senior. They only offered this study hall class to seniors. My brother took it a couple years before, and everybody wanted to get into it when they were a senior. And but what you could also do is you could leave the classroom. It's like one of those big classrooms, like set like 75 or 100 people. I went to all guys private Jesuit Catholic high school where I had to wear a shirt and tie and stuff like that. It's called St. Xavier in Louisville, Kentucky. This was 2003. And so the internet was out and we had computers. So what I would do is I would leave the class most of the time, and I would just go out into the main library area and like the hallway where they had like computers that you could access with the internet. And I remember this one day, these one guys were talking about, and I didn't really know these guys. They were also in study hall. They're talking about this video of this guy, this engineer that created this car that ran on water. I was like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? It's too crazy. And I'm like, this is 2003. I'm like 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school. I'm not like an engineering or like math or physics like nerd or expert or anything like that. I don't know a whole lot about cars. This just sounds crazy to me. But I remember watching this video, and it was like a local news broadcast or something like that, where they were reporting on this like brilliant engineer who says that he has a car that he converted into the engine into running completely on water. And we watched the video and we talked about it, and we were like, yeah, I guess it's real. And I was like, what? And what, like, what? And then I never like even told, I don't think, my dad or mom about that. I might have told my brother, but he was already off of college. I don't even think I told him. I might have told a few friends, and like, I don't know, back to like normal life. And I was like, I don't know if that's real or not. Like, that's crazy, but like, I'm still driving in my like 1990 beater Honda Accord home, and doesn't really help me. So the point is like, I've heard these stories and stuff. And if you're watching this, like, you're hearing this story. I don't know if you've heard stories like this before, but like, what I'm telling you is like, I believe these things are true. So then why aren't these things actually coming out into the marketplace? Why don't more people know about this stuff? Well, in that Lost Century documentary that came out in 2023, that's on Amazon Prime Video right now for free, that Stephen Greer is in, he's basically saying the pattern of all of these engineers who have created these like 0 point energy devices, like free energy devices, is that they worked really hard for many years to create this novel technology in their own way. And they were so focused on getting the patents secured so that they could become extremely wealthy. We're not talking about like a few $1,000,000. Like, they wanted to make hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, and be very wealthy and get the prestige from it. They end up going through the American patent. This is all in America, by the way. These are all like white engineer guys, probably in their 30s, 40s, 50s, typical profile of that period of time, 80s, 90s and stuff. And the pattern is that like, they go through this process and basically greed overcomes them. And then there's apparently huge stopgaps by the powers that shouldn't be, is what I call them. By the way, I've coined that from Jeff Berwick. I think it's a great way to describe. I don't call these people elites. I don't call them, they're not elite. These are the powers that shouldn't be. These are the deep state, is what some people might call them. The blob is what Mike Benz calls them. I call them the powers that shouldn't be, because you can watch this Lost documentary, the Lost Century documentary yourself. One of the patent clerks for the U.S. Federal government was being interviewed in this documentary. I don't think like for the Lost Century documentary, but they showed a clip of it. And they were asking him like, hey, why didn't this engineer get this patent for basically his free energy device? Like, why is he not getting granted this patent that he deserves? Like, what is the holdup here? And basically this guy, and I believe he was a patent clerk for the US federal government for like 20 years, a very like senior, serious person. He basically said, that's above my pay grade. You'll have to ask my boss. And of course, his boss isn't going to ever answer that. So the point is that like, there are clearly, you get to a certain level where there's like some level of like deep state powers that shouldn't be, these shadow government figures that like don't answer to presidents. They see like US presidents as like, they're only here for 4 years, maybe 8 at most. These are the people that are like black budgets. I mean, if you don't believe this stuff is real, then really you just haven't done the research. Donald Rumsfeld came on uh, came on Public Broadcast Network, PBS, Public Broadcast Service, right? Yeah, PBS. Um, on September 10th, 2001, a day before 9/11, which was September 11th, 2001, and said that the Pentagon has lost, could not account for about $2 trillion. $2 trillion in 2001 money. I mean, look at inflation. That's probably somewhere around like $6 trillion right now. I mean, these numbers are just unfathomable. Can you even fathom $2 trillion? And the section, by the way, of the Pentagon where their databases were and all the files, the physical files where they lost all that, where the accounting offices were, guess what got hit the next day? By a plane. By the way, there's no video evidence that a plane hit there. You can look. Try to find video of a plane hitting the Pentagon. You can't because it doesn't exist. It was almost certainly a missile. In any event, whether it was a plane or a missile, that whole area, the Pentagon, the next day, just poof, destroyed. So what happened to that $2 billion? So we'll never know. It's all destroyed. So this is, I mean, you can verify if this is the first time you're hearing all this, just do your own research. It's all on YouTube. It's all on the internet. I've known about this stuff for about 20 years, over 20 years. So yeah, it's crazy stuff. So the point is, like, there's clearly a deep state. I've been researching DUMB, so DUMB. DUMB is an acronym that stands for Deep Underground Military Bases. They are real for sure. There's a documentary that I watched on Amazon a couple of weeks ago. I think it's called DUMB. DUMB. You could research it, try and find one. It was like a 45-minute documentary. It wasn't that long. But it was this guy that claimed that he worked at a DUMB, a deep underground military base, through the late 70s when it was completed, I think in 79, all the way through the 80s and early 90s. And then he came out and publicly talked about it and said that there were aliens down there and all this stuff. Like, who knows? But he was probably murdered in his apartment in 1995 after touring the country, I think, for a couple of years from like 93 to 95, like telling all about this, giving lectures. There's videos and stuff of him exposing these deep underground military bases. And if you want to learn, if this is the first you're hearing about this, just type it into YouTube. There's all sorts of podcasts and videos that talk about deep underground military bases. If you're a sci-fi fan or anything, like the movie Stargate, for example, in 1994 with Kurt Russell, which was an awesome movie. Seen it many times. Max, I had you, Alex, and Rowan watch it at our lake house in 2020. During the pandemic, you guys all watched it for the first time. That was probably the 17th time I had seen it in 2020. One of my favorite movies of all time. If you're not familiar, it's 1994 when the movie came out. It's Roland Emmerich, the director, the same guy that directed Independence Day in 1996, a couple years later. And the premise of the movie is that they have a Stargate, a wormhole portal that can take you to anywhere else in the universe. And basically, the ancient Egyptians have had this Stargate for thousands of years, and they don't say for sure, but the ancient Egyptians were basically aliens, and who knows, they've probably been around for, millennia, if not millions of years, if not billions of years. And so basically the pharaohs were actually aliens, and they can travel through these wormholes, through these stargates to other planets throughout the universe. I don't think they clarify exactly in the movie if it's another galaxy or somewhere else in our galaxy, but they basically just travel through these stargates, these wormholes to other planets, and basically just get primitive humans to be their slaves and worship them. And so if you look at the Egyptians from 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 years ago, if you believe that timeline, that's a whole nother conversation. But if you believe that timeline, then yeah, it's just a very interesting thing. And at the end of the movie, sorry if it's a spoiler, the actual pyramid, the Egyptian pyramid, takes off into air, and you realize it's actually a spaceship. It's how they travel. So crazy ass movie, really cool. 1994 vibes for sure. But in that movie, they have a deep underground military base, and there's lots of other sci-fi movies. So that movie Stargate actually spun off into a sequel and then a whole like TV series. They did like Stargate Atlantis and stuff. I never watched any of those things. Maybe I'll watch some of it sometime. They're a little cheesy, but the concept is pretty cool. So I've been watching a lot of this stuff. I've been following Stephen Greermore, Jeremy Corbell, researching UAPs, UFOs. Joe Rogan has been into this stuff for many decades. I've watched lots of Joe Rogan podcasts, and Joe Rogan's had on Jeremy Corbell like 3 times. He had Jeremy Crane, no, I think 4 times. The one time with Bob Lazar, like I said, in 2019 with Jeremy Corbell. Then Jeremy Corbell came on with George Knapp twice, I think in 2020 and again in 2024. In June of 2024, I watched both of those. George Knapp, again, was the Las Vegas reporter in 1989 that interviewed Bob Lazar, and then has been following this Bob Lazar story the whole time. George Knapp has gone to Russia a couple times, I think both in the 90s, to kind of interview the Russian government and physicists and stuff to see what their UFO, UAP situation is like. That's a very fascinating story. George Knapp also interviewed, I believe his name was John Lear in 1987 is when George Knapp really got interested in this UFO stuff, aliens, things like that. So John Lear is the son of Bill Lear, William Bill Lear. You may have heard of a Lear jet before, Lear. So Bill Lear was a very brilliant engineer, and he invented the Lear jet. I don't know, maybe like 100 years ago, something like that. And he also invented the car radio and other inventions as well too. So obviously a very serious person who's invented a lot of cool stuff. Well, he had a son named John Lear, and John, I think when he was 45 years old in 1987, came on the Las Vegas, newscast on this little, I think, show that was on at like 6 a.m. that like hardly anybody watched, according to George Knapp, and did this interview and was talking about all these aliens and the government and stuff that we are in communication with, and crash crafts and all this crazy stuff. I watched that on YouTube a couple weeks ago. You could check that out. Look for John Lear, 1987, George Knapp. By the way, George Knapp is spelled Knapp, I believe. So yeah, I've just been doing all this research. I'm just kind of like flowing, just like sharing all of this like research I've been doing. And it's really hard to tell like how true this stuff is. But the thing is like, if it's true, then it means like so much of the reality that we live in is like fake in many ways, which is like really fascinating to think about. And so I think that we should put pressure on our, government to come out with this stuff. So Joe Rogan has done a really good job of like exposing a lot of these things and getting more and more people interested in this stuff. So I've watched a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts about this stuff over the last few weeks. Joe, as I mentioned, interviewed Commander David Faber, who was the one who saw that Tic Tac in the air when he was flying as a Navy pilot, or maybe an Air Force pilot, something like that, in like a $70 million, aircraft. So they don't just give that to any dummy. And that was a really interesting interview. You could just type in Joe Rogan, David Faber, Faber. And Joe also interviewed, oh my gosh, what is this guy's name? I can't remember his name now, but he's about 38 years old, a couple years younger than me. And he's the one that whistleblowed a few years ago, and did that testimony to Congress about all the UAPs and stuff that we have, saying that we have, alien craft and alien biologics and stuff like that. Is it Graves? I think that's somebody else. David Graves. I'll try to figure that one out. But yeah, so I've just been doing all this research and stuff. And then Ashton Forbes. I've been watching every single Ashton Forbes live stream over the last like 3 months or so. So now it's time to talk about MH370. This will probably be the last thing I talk about before I go, because it's past midnight now. It's late. But MH370, if you're not familiar with it, it was March 8th, 2014, where the Malaysian airline MH370 commercial airline with, I believe, 236 passengers on it just completely disappeared over the Indian Ocean somewhere. And it's the only time, to my knowledge, that a commercial airline, certainly with that many people on it, just disappeared, vanished, never found the airline. Some People claim that we found parts of those airlines at different places. There's a documentary on Netflix about it that I watched in March. It's a 3-episode documentary, each are about an hour, so about 3 hours total. But in that, you can watch that, check it out. I recommend you do. But in that documentary, they left out, in my opinion, the most important part, that 10 days later, from when the plane disappeared on March 8th, 2014, on March 18th, 2014, I believe, there was a YouTube video uploaded to an anonymous YouTube account showing 2 videos of this like plane, like literally having orbs come and like spin around it, 3 orbs for maybe 20 seconds or so. And then for a split second, you can see this like wormhole, like this black hole open up, and the plane just poof, disappears. Now, there's controversy over whether this footage is fake or real. I believe it's real. So that means that some entity has, if it's real, then that means that some entity has the technology to create a wormhole and teleport the plane. Because as we know, no energy can ever be created or destroyed. Energy is always just transferred. So I don't believe that plane was just like, incinerated, and like gone forever. I believe it was teleported. So in any event, Ashton Forbes is a really brilliant guy, in my opinion, and he just does these live streams where he shares all of these old videos of all these brilliant engineers. We're talking like PhDs and like, nuclear engineering and quantum physics and all this stuff, and all these secret black projects they've been working on for the Air Force and stuff like that. By the way, it was the U.S. Air Force that Ashton Forbes believes disappeared that flight MH370 with those 236 passengers on it, which, by the way, we still to this day officially like have no idea where that plane went or where all those passengers are. They've never materialized. And there's controversy over whether parts of that plane was actually discovered or not. I learned a lot in that Netflix documentary and some other like YouTube videos and documentaries that I've watched and other research I've watched about the whole commercial airline industry, how many parts it takes to make a commercial airline like that can a Boeing, 747, and how so many of those parts and pieces have like serial numbers on them to, identify that they're actually the part that came from that plane. In any event, it's a rabbit hole and fascinating stuff. But basically, yeah, if you want to learn more about this stuff, I highly recommend checking out Ashton Forbes live streams. They're wild. I just watched his one from tonight while I was actually at the gym lifting weights and stuff. So if this stuff is real, then it's the biggest story in humanity's history, like by far. And at this current time, I do believe it's real. So we want this information to come out because we want free energy. I want free energy. I want to be able to teleport things, quantum entanglement, all this stuff. So yeah, check it out. Check it out, Ashton Forbes. And I guess the final thing that I'll talk about before I go is like longevity, rejuvenation. I still keep up with this industry and science as closely as I can. But what I'm also focused on is just doing everything that I personally can within my power and my financial situation to live as healthy of a life as I possibly can. So what I'm doing right now is not great. So I'm going to go to bed very soon because it's past midnight. Sleep is very, very important to me. So I'm going to be getting to bed soon. But all the different like things that I take, protocols that I do, food that I eat, exercise is all like very important to me. So I have my little rebounder right over here, my little trampoline. Oh, there's my Steve Jobs, Walter Isaacson book as well there too. So I jump on that thing, try to do it every day for like 5 minutes or so. I think it's just like really good for you, good exercise. I have my Normatec leg compressions, which are really good for speeding up the lymphatic system, draining out lactic acid and other toxins. If you're not aware, obviously the heart pumps blood, but the heart isn't like pumping blood down to your toes. The heart doesn't pump blood throughout your whole body. That's not the way that it works. So people talk about like movement and how movement is important, which is true. They talk about getting like 10,000 steps and exercising. All that stuff's great. But like I do my Normatec every day to speed up my lymphatic system, my leg compression, so that really gets the blood flowing and stuff and drain out toxins. So I do the Normatec almost every single day. I actually only did about 45 minutes today. I normally do at least an hour, sometimes 2 hours. When I'm just on the couch, I could be working, doing stuff on the internet, whatever. Normally do it at night before I go to bed, but instead I'm doing this live stream. Um, but yeah, highly recommend any type of, like, if you can get a Normatec leg compression, it's really, really good in my opinion for draining lactic acid. Normatec says that it can prevent like varicose veins. It just really helps with blood flow and removing toxins. So highly recommend that. I do red light therapy almost every single day. I have a clinical grade red light therapy device. If you get a red light therapy device, you always want to make sure you get one that's clinical grade, meaning it's the same quality device they actually used in the clinical trials to show the positive results they have. So if you're not familiar with red light, when the sun is first rising in the morning, it's only emitting like the red light. I believe it's not emitting all the harmful UVs, ultraviolet lights that are damaging to your DNA and your skin and cause skin damage and ultimately like skin cancer and stuff like that and burning your skin. So you don't need any sunscreen or sun protection or anything like that. But I don't wake up like that early most of the time, and I'm certainly not going to tomorrow morning, staying up past midnight. So I do my red light. You can do red light anytime. It's not like blue light where you need to wear like blue light blocking glasses at night. You can do red light any single time. And my device is about like that big. So I kind of move it around, put it on different parts of my body, my face, top of my head. Red light's supposed to help with balding. Hasn't really helped yet, but I haven't done it much or enough yet. Um, I put it like everywhere, literally under my armpits, on my private parts, on my right knee and right ankle, where I had stem cell injections back in 2019 on December 20th, 2019 at Dream Body Clinic. Got the mesenchymal stem cells injected, which those are still doing great, but a little bit of pain here and there. And I play basketball regularly. I played some basketball tonight. I do as much weight training as I can. Normally about an hour, 2 or 3 times a week. I'd like to do more. And then I sauna realistically about 4 to 5 days a week. I'd love to do it every day. I do it. I try to do at least 20 minutes at the gym. 185 degrees or so is normally what they have it at. And I think sauna is just really, really good for you. Helps your body create, it's actually your liver that generates heat shock proteins, which then can kind of bind to misfolded proteins and help them fold back to their normal shape or die off. The heat shock proteins are just really good for you. Sauna helps upregulate norepinephrine, noradrenaline, just really regulates your hormones. Helps you remove toxins through sweating, heavy metals, and other toxins. So sauna is just one of the best things that you can do for yourself. There's clinical trials with significant amounts, statistically significant amount of humans in it that show in the Scandinavian countries that regular sauna use of at least 5 days a week, 19 minutes at 175 to 225 degrees Fahrenheit reduces all-cause mortality, meaning it reduces your chance of dying. It reduces heart disease, cancer, all the major chronic aging-related debilitating diseases. So try to do sauna as much as you can, if you can. And then just eating like really healthy. Try to do grounding every day. I do a hydrogen water in the morning that this guy Gary Brecka recommends. I watch his Ultimate Human podcast here and there. So yeah, that's just some health stuff that I've been doing. I've been taking nicotine pouches recently, just 3 milligrams. I started that when my buddy Sherm gave me some in late February. That's interesting because I never smoked cigarettes or anything like that. I never used nicotine, but I've noticed it's a diuretic for me. It helps me. It gets my bowels going and helps me poop. Which, poop is actually the best way to remove toxins. I think it's about 80% of the toxins that you remove from your body is through the stool, through pooping. So that's been interesting. I know the nicotine pouches have been blowing up in popularity. Joe Rogan, other folks are doing them. And yeah, I've been dabbling in that because my buddy gave me some for free. But definitely not abusing it. Some people say nicotine's addicting. I don't know. I don't find it to be addicting for me either, but I'm also don't really have an addicted personality to substances. I do have an addicted personality to certain things when it comes to like competition, but not to substances, not like alcohol or cannabis or nicotine. I just, some people just can't fathom that. I was having a conversation when I was playing a poker with these guys a couple of weeks ago. They're like, "Oh, you'll get addicted to it." Like, yeah, trust me. Like, and I just went 5 days without doing it and didn't even think about it. And then on Wednesday, I was like, oh, I want to hop on the Normatec and do a nicotine pouch. Actually, like hopping on the Normatec, doing the red light on my face and chest and hair and stuff. And while I'm on the Normatec, I'll take my shirt off and put in a nicotine pouch in. I do kind of all those at the same time, and it helps me just kind of like relax and stuff. So that's what I've been doing a lot the last few months. And as far as other things that I'm taking, I guess I'll just kind of finish with this. I do creatine every day. I've been doing that for many years. I used to do about 5 grams a day. Now I've been hearing recent studies and influencers talking about studies that are showing benefits for like reversing Alzheimer's at 20 milligrams a day. So and other benefits as well too of doing 20 milligrams a day. So I've been doing, my wife and I have been doing 20 milligrams of creatine almost every day in the morning. The first thing that I do when I wake up is I do my hydrogen water. I have a little hydrogen water machine that I put my reverse osmosis water in there, turn it on. It takes about 2 minutes to turn the water to put the more hydrogen molecules in it. And then you got to drink it like soon within about 45 minutes, or the hydrogen water molecules just dissipate. So I put a little bit of real lemon juice in there and some Baja Gold sea salt in there. And that's what I do in the morning. I'll have my espresso. We have our espresso machine with half and half, and we make our own like homemade whipped cream and stuff in that. But before I do the coffee, I do apple cider vinegar, just about like one shot of it, about like probably I do about a tablespoon and a half, about a shot, about like a full size shot. It burns, so I chase it with like some juice or something like that. Um, and then I'm do organic yogurt. I put organic chia seeds in there. I kind of let those sit and let the chia seeds kind of absorb the moisture of the yogurt for maybe an hour or two. I do that most days. I put organic ground flax in there. It's supposed to be really good anti-cancer. I also put collagen peptides in there. I'm doing various detoxes as well, where I'm doing spirulina and some other detox products that have like many different like detox products in there, like chlorella, activated charcoal, and stuff like that. Um, as far as supplements and things like that, I'm taking vitamin D3, 5,000 international units with vitamin K2 and MCT in it. I'm taking the Dr. Eric Berg brand. He's the chiropractor YouTuber that's been around for years. I think it's a good brand. I buy all the stuff on Amazon. We actually just got a new subscribe and save today of some of that. Um, I drew glucosamine, chondroitin every day. I take NAC normally twice a day. I do those all in the morning. NAC, everything that I'm mentioning, I take those in the morning. I also take zinc. And then I also take the Sacred Severn mushroom powder, do that most days. And then this juice powder stuff that I buy at Costco. It has all the like vitamins. It's like a multivitamin, but it's just ground up juice and vegetable like powder. And then I take this Novos core product that I've been taking for years. I know the founder and CEO of the company, Chris Marible or Maribly. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it has like 9 different ingredients in it, I believe, that are supposed to help combat the 9 hallmarks of aging. Basically, the main reasons why the geroscientists believe that are the hallmarks of aging, the reason why humans age. So I take that stuff every day. I also take Facordin every day. It's Facordin is derived from a seaweed that's found in Japan. That's a SIRT6 activator. So you have 7 sirtuins in your body, sirtuin like pathways. And SIRT6 is a powerful activator that helps repair DNA damage. And a lot of centenarians and super centenarians that have been studied, they find that they just naturally have like upregulation of SIRT6. So I take this Facordin always in the morning, sometimes twice a day. I take this product called Magnesium Breakthrough by a company called Bioptimizers. And they say that there's 7 different forms of magnesium and your body needs all 7. And this pill, Magnesium Breakthrough, has 7 different forms of magnesium, they say. I do 1 pill in the morning, normally 1 pill with like lunch, and then 2 more in the evening, like with dinner. I take a few other things as well too. I'm just going through it in my head, but those are Probably like the main things that I'm like doing right now. As you can tell, it is kind of like a lot of work, a lot of different things that I take. Um, we have our organic garden going strong right now in the backyard. So, watering those plants and tending to our garden takes up some of our time and is good work just to be out there. Though my wife and I like gardening, but we're about to actually tomorrow morning. Oh, geez, in less than 6 hours, the butcher is supposed to show up to slaughter and start to process our 100% grass-fed, free-range, organic, non-GMO, no antibiotics, no hormone, grass-fed cow on my brother-in-law Dan's property. They have a 40-acre property in Cool, California called Cool Pastures Ranch, and they have something like 40 cows on there. They don't own them all. This guy John owns them, and they have a partnership. My brother-in-law Dan and this guy John who has the cows there. But we're gonna have a heifer slaughtered in the morning. My wife and I are gonna get half of it. So I'm gonna get half of all the beef and half of all the organs. It's gonna be sent to this butcher in Auburn, California, just like Auburn, Alabama, but it's Auburn, California. I think it's about 30 minutes north of me, and it's a butcher called T-Bones, and they're gonna hang it there for a couple weeks and process it. So in about 2 to 3 weeks, I should have half a cow and all the organs. So I also they slaughtered a cow there last year. I did some video of it, but I didn't put it on my channel. But I got the entire liver from that cow last year, and I eat the liver almost every single day. It was massive. I got like 3 different gallon size Ziplocs of that liver, and I eat just little bits of it, about that big, maybe about 2-3 ounces a day of raw beef liver. So I take some every few days out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator to thaw out, and I just kind of swallow it whole. I don't like to taste it. I don't chew on it. I just swallow the beef liver whole and chase it with some juice to get the taste out of my mouth if I don't like it. If I start to taste some of it, but I think that's the main stuff that I just wanted to say for now. It's been almost 2 hours. It's late. Just kind of wanted to share some of my thoughts, some of the things I've been doing, researching, and yeah, I can't stress enough this Ashton Forbes stuff and the 0 point energy. I mean, if this stuff is real, and UAPs and crash craft, I mean, Bob Lazar, and everything that Joe Rogan's done to kind of talk about this and give these people a voice. And gratitude for Joe Rogan doing that. I would just say, like, check some of this stuff out. If it sounds crazy, like, just check out Dr. Stephen Greer, Jeremy Corbell, some of these interviews, some of these documentaries. Watch The Lost Century on Amazon Prime. It's, right now at least free for me, not behind a paywall. Watch Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. I think that's on Amazon as well too. It was on Netflix back in 2019 is where I watched it originally. It might be there now. It might be on other platforms. Google it, check it out. If this stuff is real, then it's the most important thing on the planet. My channel, I've mainly talked about rejuvenation the last few years, like longevity, how to live as long and healthy as possible. If we have free energy, if this stuff is real, then we can solve aging. Like, I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that, because and this will superpower our economy. This guy, Sonny, what is his name? Ashton Forbes talks about this guy all the time. His first name's Sonny. I can't remember his last name. Lipton? Is it Sonny Lipton? I might be. He was apparently on Joe Rogan a few months ago, and he talked about this free energy microprocessor that he says that he has, and I think he wants to patent, or maybe he already has patented it. In any event, regardless of the patents, he wants to bring this to the marketplace. And he says this free energy microprocessor, if you put it in your cell phone would literally never have to be charged. That's what we talk about when we talk about like free energy. You're like, well, how's it doing that? It's apparently using electromagnets, I think, electromagnetism, to basically like pull energy out of the ether. So basically, what I believe and what like Ashton Forbes talks about and all these other brilliant energy, free energy people, experts, is that we believe that like all this space, right? All of space is just like dead space. But what they say, these free energy people say is that that is not true, that there is basically almost endless amounts of energy in space, like everywhere, and that you just can need the right way to like pull that energy out. And that's why they call it like free energy essentially. So, um, basically using electromagnetism, they can do that essentially. So I will let these much smarter people discuss that stuff. But the point is, if this stuff is actually real, then like we want this to come to the marketplace as soon as possible. And it might be happening over the next few months and years. We will see. But we want to bring more awareness to this stuff. That's why I'm talking about it on my, obviously I have like hardly any audience here right now live, and who knows how many people eventually watch this. But the point is, anything that I can do to kind of just bring some type of awareness and credibility to this, just even if you think this is batshit crazy, like just check it out and see for yourself. Like these experts are going to articulate this stuff way better than I can. Watch some of the content that I've referenced here in this live stream to just get started. Like I said, I've made all these different playlists on my public YouTube channel here. So you can go to my channel, click on playlists. I have a playlist I just created today about creatine. I talked about that. Paul Saladino just did a video about it a few days ago. And then Gary Brecka, who I also mentioned on his Ultimate Human podcast with Max Lugarvy, however you pronounce his last name, a couple weeks ago, did also another like 15-minute video on creatine, which is really good information talking about the clinical trials and the research and the potential benefits of taking creatine at like what's considered a mega dose of like 20 grams a day that I've been doing. And its benefits for like longevity, like all the stuff, if in case it's not clear, in case you don't know like who I am, all the stuff that I'm doing is not for any type of short-term gains or anything. It's all for like to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible. Right. Those are all the things that I'm doing. And, so I have a podcast on there, I have a playlist on my public YouTube channel for public playlists for creatine, for red light therapy, for fasting. Oh yeah, I got to talk about this. So I've been doing dry fasting recently. So dry fasting, what that means is no water, no liquids, no nothing. I don't put anything in my mouth, no supplements, no amino acids, no salt or sodium or vitamins, anything, nothing. That's what a dry fast is. And I did my longest one ever I think I finished about 3 days ago. So I did 44 hours dry fasted. No food, no water, no liquids, no nothing. And I'm doing this obviously for health purposes, because what I've been learning is that, and I've known about dry fasting since 2018. I actually started with dry fasting from this YouTuber I was watching, and he was like a European guy, younger guy, probably in his late 20s at the time. And it blew me away. He was talking about the dry fasting that he did. He wasn't doing, I don't think, multiple days, not even over a day. I think he was talking about doing more like 16 hours. And he was basically just like, hey, if that sounds crazy, like just stop drinking after dinner and then get like 8 hours of sleep, and you wake up at like 12, and then just basically go another like 4 hours until like afternoon, and just try that. And so I did it when we were in Istanbul. 2018 was my wife and I, our year of travel. And I remember watching some of those videos when we were in Istanbul, Turkey. We stayed at the same place for like 7 days or something. And I watched a bunch of his YouTube videos at the time. And one of the things that he told me, which I thought was really surprising and counterintuitive, is that when you dry fast and you wake up in the morning, your pee is actually going to be clear. Normally, when I wake up in the morning, my pee is like really dark. And when I say normally, I mean kind of like before then in 2018, before I ever tried dry fasting or even thought about it. I'd have a glass of water. I actually have one like this. This is Simply Modern is the brand. You can see the SM there. And they have a straw that goes all the way down to the end here. So I like these things. And they're all stainless steel, no microplastics or anything like that. It keeps the drinks cold for longer. So I've been keeping something like this, the water bottle, on my nightstand for years, by my nightstand. And if I get thirsty in the middle of the night, wake up to pee at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd drink some water, right? Hydrate. That's what I was always taught. And that's what I think a lot of people believe. But still, like you wake up in the morning, your first pee is normally pretty dark, like certainly not clear. Well, one thing he talked about in his videos about dry fasting, I remember in 2018, that I thought was super peculiar and intriguing, is that when you dry fast, you'd wake up in the morning and your pee would be like clear. Like, how could that be? Like, how could you not be dehydrated? Well, when you're dry fasting, your body actually goes into autophagy faster than water fasting because your body needs energy. And specifically, when you're getting dehydrated, your body wants to hydrate itself, so it wants water. So what does it do? Where is water stored? It's stored in fat cells. So your body goes into autophagy faster, break down that fat cell, use it as energy, and take the perfect H2O molecule that's in your fat cell and use that to hydrate yourself. So pretty crazy stuff. So I was like, man, that's crazy. So I remember in 2018 in Istanbul, Turkey, I would try the dry fasting. I would just like not drink for maybe like 6 hours or so, not eat or drink anything for like 6 hours before I go to sleep, sleep 8 or 9 hours, wake up, boom, I'm at like, 14, 15 hours of dry fasting, make my first pee in the morning. Sure enough, like crystal clear, like almost like water, like almost no coloration. And it's just very fascinating. So that's what I've experienced as well too when I do the dry fasting now. So I did my longest dry fast about 3 or 4 months ago in like February, March. I did 25 hours and I kind of forgot about it or something. And then Max, who's been this live chat, he's been sending me some dry fast videos, and there's dedicated YouTube channels about dry fasting. I'm sure you can find them if you do a search for it. I've been watching some of those over the last few weeks, and Max was talking about doing a longer dry fast himself. I remember a few months ago I watched Brett Weinstein and his wife Heather. They did a podcast about dry fasting, and they'd already done a 3-day dry fast, and they kind of did a podcast talking about the science of it. And they were kind of, at the time, they were like new to fasting. This podcast, I want to say, came out probably like 6 months ago or so. I remember listening to it like while I was in the sauna at the gym. And at first, they thought it was crazy, right? If you've never heard of this stuff, you just think it sounds crazy, impossible, dangerous, But they are both evolutionary biologists, Eric Weinstein and his wife Heather, and so they have an evolutionary biology, background to kind of help them navigate and investigate this science of dry fasting. And they did a 3-day dry fast, and that's when I thought, I was like, okay, I know Eric Weinstein, I trust him, I trust his intelligence. He did a really good job explaining in this podcast kind of the science of it. And he talked about one thing that I wasn't aware of: camels. I always thought that the camels' humps or hump, whether they have one or two, was water. I think that's what most people think. No, it's not water. It's fat. The camel's hump is fat. So when the camel needs water or energy, its entire hump is just fat that's stored there, goes into autophagy, uses the fat as energy, and hydrates the body with the fat being converted into water, just as I described. That's what the camel's hump are. It's actually fat. Who would have known? I rode a camel in the desert in Israel in 2010. Had no idea. Thought it was. I didn't know what it was. Honestly, I thought the hump was like just like part of their muscular skeletal system built into them. I really had no idea. I thought there was just like water in there mainly. I think that's what I was taught. I think that's what they even said. But Eric Weinstein says that it's actually fat mainly. So obviously there's a lot of water in your fat cells, but mainly fat. So in any event, the point is that been doing more research and kind of on the dry fasting and kind of coming to the conclusion that I should give this a try because I want to get into autophagy faster. I want to clean up all the damaged cells and senolytic cells in me and any type of viruses, any type of toxins in there. Like basically when you do fasting, you help drain all that stuff out of your body because your body um, goes into that state where it's going into that cleaning mechanism with autophagy or autophagy. Eat thyself, right? And so you go into autophagy faster when you're dry fasting is the science that I've been learning recently. So I did 44 hours and I got to that point where I could have gone longer, but honestly, my legs started getting weak. My legs started getting a little sore, low energy, a little bit of dry mouth, but not that bad. And I just had really like intense parenting responsibilities with the kids. I really wanted to go to the gym and work out. And you really don't want to be like working out a lot when you're doing that fast. You really want to be trying to just like rest and let your body rest and digest. If you're not aware, there's only two states you can be in: the parasympathetic state and the sympathetic state for your nervous system. That is parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, flight or fight, or rest and digest. So when you're like doing fasting, you really want to be like resting. You don't want to be like expending a lot of energy. So you want to be resting, digesting, and letting your body heal and recover. And I just reached a point at 44 hours. I'm like, man, I've gone longer than I ever thought that I could. I could easily go another 4 hours if I really wanted to. I could make it to 2 days. I could even go longer. Like I felt fine. My brain function and everything. I was just kind of like low on energy, and legs were sore and kind of like weak. But mental clarity was totally fine. But I just reached a point where I was like proud of myself for doing 44 hours. I think I can do more longer. But I just really wanted to like go to the gym and eat food and get my energy up and take the kids to the gym too, because that's where they get their social interaction. We go to the Lifetime gym in Folsom, California, and there they have something called the Kids Academy, where the kids get up to 3 hours a day of um, childcare, which is great. They have art class there. They can do classes like karate, dodgeball. They have like a whole play area in there with like, the whole little maze area, books, games, playing outside with balls and things. It's just a great environment for them. So I wanted to get them there, and I didn't want to go to the gym and just like try to work out with no energy or whatever, or sauna when I'm trying to dry fast and sweat it all out and get all thirsty. So that's why I broke my fast. But I was proud of myself for doing 44 hours dry fasting. And so you might hear me talking about that more. So what I've decided for now is I'm just going to try and like dry fast as much as possible. So even though this water's sitting right here, you might have noticed I haven't taken a single sip in the last 2 hours, and I'm not going to. I just had it here in case I get like a really dry mouth and really wanted to take a sip so I could keep talking. But obviously, I'm talking just fine enough. I do have some dry mouth, but so what I'm doing now is trying to just do dry fasting like every single day, and trying to get to at least 12 hours is my goal. So it's like have an early dinner, have my last few drinks of water or whatever liquid that I'm drinking, maybe a beer or something. I'm not abstaining from all alcohol. I like to indulge in some of the spoils of the modern world. I like a good IPA or something, but then cut it off early, and then dry fast through the whole night in the morning, and maybe wait to have anything for a few more hours. So I try to get to like 12 hours every day. And then if I'm feeling good, maybe even stretch it out 14, 16. That way I get into autophagy and get the benefits of autophagy and things like that. So that's kind of my current thinking. Maybe I'll do another multi-day dry fast here soon. Maybe I'll even try to get to 3, 4, or 5 days. From one of these YouTube channels that I've watched about dry fasting specifically, this guy's an older guy. He looks like he's a boomer, maybe in his 70s, definitely in his 60s at least. He talks about how if you get to 7 days, something like that, 5 or 7 days, then you're going to tap into your stem cell, your storage of stem cells in your body. I don't remember if he mentioned bone marrow or not. That's probably what he's referring to. But he said you want to be careful going like too far past that, because you don't want to like deplete all your stem cell storage, but you're going to like generate more stem cells and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, this is just really fascinating science. Who knows if this is all true? I try to be very skeptical and careful with what I believe. I'm just trying to take in like new information and contemplate new things, and always with the goal of just trying to live as long and healthy as possible, increase my health span to hopefully increase my lifespan. Healthy people typically don't die unless there's accidents, murder. You're not committing suicide if you're healthy, by my definition of healthy, because if you're healthy, then that means physically, mentally, spiritually, like you're not going to want to die if you're healthy. So that's just my goal, just to stay as healthy as possible. Staying as biologically young as possible helps you stay as healthy as possible. So that's my ultimate goal with all this stuff. And so I'm just trying to do research as well too, and be cautious and careful with this, because like I don't want to deplete any stem cells reserves that I might have, because I know one of the 9 hallmarks of aging is stem cell exhaustion, right? So you don't want to exhaust any potential stem cells that could be there for you. So yeah, I need to continue to do some more research on the dry fasting specifically. And I know a lot of like more influencers and content creators are starting to kind of talk about this more and more and more. I've seen different videos on various platforms, Facebook Watch, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all talking about dry fasting. So it's interesting. It's also interesting because like so many people talk about staying hydrated and how important that is. And I do think it is in general. But we're talking about hormesis here, the hormetic effect, like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of thing. Giving that certain level of stress to your body, like the Goldilocks zone, where you're stressing your body and getting it to do positive things for you, like getting into autophagy, but not going too extreme with any of this stuff where you're doing any long-term damage. So that's what I'm always trying to avoid, doing any type of long-term damage. So with that, I think I could keep going, but it's 12:42. I think I've said most of the things that I wanted to say here on this live stream. Some of the things that I've been doing, researching, talking about. Um, uh, I'll just leave it with this. Elon says the future is going to be weirder than you think. I'll kind of rephrase that to reality is already weirder than most people think. And maybe I'll start talking about more of that stuff on other live streams. I watch a lot of YouTube content and stuff. And I watched this video a couple weeks ago about these humanoid robot company out of China and just how advanced it was and crazy and how cheap it is in China because, China is just a different economy with, obviously converting the Chinese currency, which is Chinese yuan. I've been to China. I've been to Shanghai. I think it's the yuan into US dollar. Is like these humanoid robots were like, I think only $4,000 or something. Like it's crazy. That's what Elon talks about. Like these humanoid robots, like Optimus at Tesla, he thinks they can get them down to like $10,000. And eventually the price is going to have to come down for most people to afford them. And so the question is, how useful are these robots going to actually be? Eventually, I believe, with technology, everything just improving, they're going to be super useful. The question is, how long is it going to take and how expensive is it going to be, right? The devil's in the details. I mean, if people are like, oh, I won't want that, or I'm like, people just talk out of their ass. That's why the title of this video is Be Careful Who You Follow, right? Most people have no idea what they're talking about and they just share their stupid opinions all the time. And it's just like hilarious to me. But like, just think about it. First principles. If you can get a humanoid robot like a Tesla Optimus and it only costs you $10,000, but it can like literally do your laundry, walk your dog, even like parent your kids to a certain extent, unload the dishwasher, load and unload the dishwasher, do the dishes, like just basically do all the meaningless chores around your house that you don't want to do, laundry, cleaning up. I mean, I have a robot vacuum. I should have talked about that. I did a lot of research about that earlier this year. We ended up spending like almost $900 on this robot vacuum, which sounds like a lot. And it was Robo Block is the brand that I chose. I watched like tons of YouTube videos on different comparisons of robot vacuums. I saw one that was on Amazon, this little cheap Chinese one that was only $90. It had pretty decent reviews, not a whole lot. It only had like 60 reviews. I'm like, oh, it's $90. What's the, like, why not? Well, the reason we ended up getting this one for like 900 is because it's the RoboBlock, great brand. It washes the floors every single night. It vacuums, washes. It can go on hard surfaces or carpet. It then cleans itself. Cleans itself. Cleans the mop itself. All I do, I have it run like every night. It's actually running like right now. It starts at midnight. It's 12:45 right now, so it's probably running out there in the other room. If this door was open in this office, it comes in here and cleans in here. And all I do in the morning is have to refill the water tank, empty out the dirty water tank, and then every few days I just kind of empty out the actual um, filter or the vacuum bag that gets all the dirt in there. Sometimes I have to clean out the filter maybe like once every couple weeks or something like that. And if it gets clogged, sometimes it gets little toys or things in there. I mean, I told you my daughter will be 3 on the 23rd. My son will be 6 in November. So sometimes they leave toys around at night, but that's part of my routine at night before I go to bed is I try to clean up all the toys on the floor to let the robot vacuum clean. You got to clean for the cleaners. And so my point is we have a dishwasher, we have a laundry, washer and dryer machine. We have a robot vacuum cleaning our floors now. I'm already trying to automate as many things as possible in my life, like most people are. It's just a like cost, money, time analysis thing, just respecting your time. So when it comes to these humanoid robots, it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to happen way sooner than most people realize. Like I said, there's already some of these things that exist in China and Asia that are way more useful and affordable than most people realized. And I think they're coming to America, hopefully sooner than most people realize. So I think Elon said he wants to have 5,000 Tesla Optimus bots working in the factory by the end of this year, like produced. Maybe it's 10,000. And then from there, like 10x that. I think he wants to make 100,000 at Tesla next year in 2026. And then who knows if they keep all those in those factory or just sell them to other commercial partners, or if they start retail selling them just like they're selling cars, where you can go and buy a Tesla Optimus bot. Now, the first generation is probably not going to be like super useful. It's probably going to only be able to do certain like trivial tasks, but I'm sure there'll be better and better software updates, hardware improvements, where it's just going to get better and better and better. So for me personally, I'm just going to say, just like the Neuralink, I'll get it when it becomes useful enough to me, available to me at the right cost. Like if it's a good value proposition, I'll do it, just like I did the LASIK. If the Tesla Optimus bot is a good price and it can help do all these meaningless tasks and things that I don't want to be doing, then sure, I'll have it. So the future is going to be weirder than you think. The present's already weirder than you think, and we'll leave it at that. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. Final thing that I'll say is, yeah, leave me a comment. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. And I just want to try and build a great audience and community here where we can get closer to the truth and just try to make the world a better place. That's really my goal. People have asked Elon in all these interviews, and when he did when he was campaigning in Pennsylvania for those like final 5 days before the election, I saw the Q&A and people would ask him like, Elon, like, what should I do? And this and that. He's like, just try to be as useful as possible. It's actually very difficult to be useful at scale. So that's really all I'm trying to do with this live stream. Just share some of my thoughts. I've been doing so much research on YouTube mainly and the internet and stuff, about health and wealth and life hacks and politics and how to improve our economy, our American system, our politics, our world, how to be a good parent, how to be as healthy as possible, how to increase wealth, following technology, AI, business, just lifelong self-learner. I do so much learning. I should really start giving back and kind of sharing some of my thoughts and things that I've learned. So if you guys have questions about anything, I'm more than happy to share my perspective. What I always try to do is only tell you what I know for sure. And if I'm just sharing an opinion, then I'll let you know that it's an opinion. I hate It's frustrating when people talk about things like I was saying a minute ago, like they know what they're talking about, and I know they have no idea what they're talking about. I make a mental note. I'm like, man, this person is like dumb. Like, I'm sorry. Like, they might be really smart. They might make $300,000 a year. They might be an expert in something, but they don't know how to like think properly and give good advice. They don't know how to admit when they don't know something and just like tell other people that. I don't know if it's ego, blind spots. Nobody calls them out on that, and they just get used to it. They're trying to sound smarter than they're not. Like, I don't know what it is, but so many people do that. So I try my hardest to never do that. So if you have questions about something and I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't know the answer, maybe I'll give it my best guess. If I have no idea, I'll just tell you, like, I have no idea. That's not my forte. So just want to be a resource to people to help you guys get closer to the truth and ultimately improve your life. So I'm going to leave it at that, and hopefully do another one of these streams soon.